Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 61. In the next second, an electromagnetic beam that was so fast that only the golden light could be seen, and before everyone's consciousness was completely unresponsive, it had already penetrated the space 50 meters in front of them. Including everything you encounter along the way. Whether it's the air or the rubble, the end result is no different from the 10 corpses standing in a straight line. At this moment, everyone quieted down, and the atmosphere fell directly to the freezing point. Whether it was the remnants of the enemies, or the 8 million in the distance, Erlang and them were all shocked by the pale gold afterimage that was still in the air at this time. Ding! At this time, Sheng Ming looked at the enemy's frightened gaze with a cold face, and casually took out a $100 coin from his trouser pocket, and then pointed at the enemy in another direction with a frightened face. If you want to die, just come up. Quote. The enemies were sweating profusely, and they didn't dare to move at all. They didn't expect a teenage child to be so ruthless. Look at the 10 bodies that were punched through the chest. 100, make me 50 steel balls now. Sheng Ming stared at them as he said to the 8 million in the distance. Huh. Hearing the scream, the 8 million students immediately reacted from their stunned thoughts, awe. But her and Erlang's eyes glanced at the few golden characters fluttering in the wind behind the Shengming Imperial Divine Robe. And at this moment they seemed to have some understanding of 867, what is the concept of the so-called, first eye thunder shadow. What are you doing? Just as the two sides were at a stalemate again, a rough voice came from nowhere. The move he just made should only be able to be issued at the same time, and it can only be released in one direction. These words made the enemies present complain dissatisfied. Are they really stupid? What do you mean by should? Aren't you also unsure? This kind of matter that concerns the life and death of yourself and others actually wants to fool them with an uncertain guess. And even if it's true, as you say, he can only attack in one direction at a time, but who the hell will hit the golden retriever? This is pure gambling, gambling is still lost, and there is no life again. Therefore, after this sound, no one reacted in any way. Their meaning is very simple, you can bear it, you go on. But it may be that this person has more prestige among them, so no one really opened his mouth to refute it, but he is still very attentive physically. Where? On the other side, Kamido raised his arm to watch the surroundings, but he didn't notice the person who had just spoken. It was clear that the man was the most dangerous, because all his guesses were correct, which is why he didn't see it directly send out a second super electromagnetic cannon. I just don't want to force this group of guys to jump off the wall before they are ready. A bunch of trash. At this moment, the man's voice appeared strangely out of thin air again, but this time it was full of disdain and anger. Have you forgotten the gift that the boss gave us? This. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the surrounding enemies were obviously hesitant and struggling, but no matter how entangled they were, well. The body is still motionless, and it can be said that it is very good. Damn. Click. At this time, the ground under Shengming's feet suddenly appeared, and then suddenly cracked, and two strong arms stretched out from the crack, one clasped Shengming's legs, and then there was a burst of anger. You've forgotten your kindness, but I. Never. Die, little ghost. Shengming. 8 million and Erlang shouted in panic. Boom, boom, crackle. In the next second, Shengming was covered by a large amount of golden electricity, and the source of the thunder and lightning was the hands below. Thunder and lightning, 8 million exclaimed. Is he the one who hid in the shadows and disrupted the power of the USJ? Erlang instantly thought of what had happened before. Solved. The surrounding enemies also looked at Kamime, who was entangled in thunder and lightning, with expectant expressions. Huh, why does he seem to be laughing? Said a green-skinned monster that was completely indistinguishable from its human form. Not likely. He's just laughing. The other enemies screamed in shock, and their words reached the ears of the lightning enemy. Huh, what nonsense. Even if he's a thunderbolt, he's just a kid after all, and his immune physique can't completely resist my electric shock. The great difference between adults and children. But before he finished speaking, he was directly interrupted by Shengming's voice, and he looked down with a smile on his face. Ah, our level difference is a bit big, and in terms of personality. At this time, except for a few residual electric lights on his skin, all the electricity on his body has been sucked into his body, huh? Perfect for charging. I am very satisfied with your service, but I'd better ask you to die. Crackle. After saying that, Shengming also cast a large amount of golden electricity, and quickly transmitted it to the masked man who was still under the ground along the arm that was clasping his ankle. No way, my rank. Ah. For 5 seconds, the guy in the pale skull mask only lasted 5 seconds, and let out a miserable wail like a normal person. It's a shame, you, as an adult. Shang Ming looked at the guy who had passed out with a roll of his eyes and said with contempt. At the same time, I also confirmed the previous guess in my heart. This guy's personality should be similar to the ability of radio waves, and he has a special advantage in the field of radio waves, but because of his poor talent, or because he doesn't work hard, the level of personality is not as high as the training. Also, if you're really a person, you won't be a minion. Quote. Shang Ming stepped over his head and slowly took 2 steps forward. Seeing that the guys around him had completely lost their fighting spirit, he turned around and asked, "Bye, are you okay?" Quote. All right. 8 million classmates directly threw a white cloth bag to Shang Ming. Shang Ming received it accurately in his hand, and then looked inside, and saw that there were indeed dozens of round steel balls, and smiled with satisfaction. Then he looked up at the suspicious enemies around him and smiled handsomely. It's time to settle you guys, rest assured that you won't die. After speaking, he exerted his waist strength, quickly rotated in place, and after introducing a little electric current into the 50 steel balls in the bag with his hand, he threw it out in all directions in one breath. Whoa, whoa, whoa. In an instant, 50 silver steel balls entangled with a little golden electricity splashed behind or around the surrounding enemy groups, just as some people sensed something bad and began to move to try to dodge. Lightning chain. 300,000 volts. Shang Ming's body instantly released the largest amount of electricity so far, but when these dangerous currents first appeared in the air, they were directly directed to the 50 charged steel balls that were still flying in midair under the electromagnetic effect. Crackle. Ah. H. The speed of lightning propagation is extremely fast, and the current on Shang Ming's body is connected to the group of steel balls, and then connected to dozens of bodies on the way. In this way, centered on the place where Shang Ming stood, a space of current circulation with a radius of about 20 meters was temporarily formed, and the golden electric light directly enveloped all existence. This is also the reason why Shang Ming dared to release the current so wantonly in the presence of 8 million and Erlang. It's over. To see the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Feilu novel. Chapter 62. The collapse area is a simulation of the most frequent earthquake accidents in Japan, so the space is full of twisted buildings and cracked streets. Except for the citizens who were not injured or killed, there was a proper scene of the end of hell. Die. Boom. At this moment, from a building that was broken at the waist, a violent explosion of fire erupted, mixed with a large number of rubble walls, and several strangely shaped bodies that were unconscious. Bang. Quote. Bang. Quote. Whether it's gravel or body, the result of falling from a high altitude to the ground is actually quite miserable, but the final sound is not very similar. Although, the big guy is really strong. After Kirishima knocked down an enemy with a hard punch, he couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the explosive heroes who were viciously making explosions everywhere not far away. Quote. Tai Jie, who was already in tattered combat uniforms, also frowned and recognized. Originally, he thought that in addition to Shang Ming and the red and white heads, he was the strongest one, but after these 10 minutes of fighting, this idea had disappeared cleanly. Although he is very unhappy with Hao's personality and is reluctant to admit it, he is honestly telling himself in his heart, I can't beat Bang Hao. Damn. Bang. Tai Jie vented his frustration and kicked the 2 enemies who rushed directly out of the window. I've worked so hard, but why do I feel this nasty? At this time, there were no more enemies rushing over, and the guys who had just besieged the 3 of them either fainted on the ground or flew out of the building very unlucky, and the best result for these people was probably seriously injured, right? Wow, why are your kicks so powerful? At this time, Kirishima, who breathed a sigh of relief, looked at Tetsujie curiously and asked. He had noticed that this guy almost overlapped with his own personality, but his fighting style was completely different from his own. He cannot hide without dodging, likes to go straight, and is used to using hardened fists, while Tai Jie is this guy who is in close proximity to most of the situation with his legs except for being close to a few people. What's even more surprising is that the strength is surprising, and those enemies seem to be slightly grazed by the legs, and the whole person will be very exaggerated and take off. Tetsujie heard Kirijima's question, pouted and said, because they are too weak, it is easiest to clean up this garbage with their legs. Quote. At the same time, he thought in his heart, when I learn judo, I will let you see when the time comes, I am a fist and leg master. But he is actually very satisfied with his current leg strength, which is the result of day and night. I don't know how many times I stepped at high speed on the spot, and I practiced. That's when the two of them noticed Bang Hao walking outside silently. Hey, Bang Hao, where are you going? Asked Kirishima as he hurriedly chased after him. Huh, needless to say, Blast looked at him in surprise and said viciously, of course I'm going to find the teleportation bastard, I'm going to kill him. Huh. Kirishima helplessly stopped. It's all this time, why are you still playing with a child's temper? Then he saw the stubbornness on Bang Hao's face, and Tai Jie on the side, you can also come and say a few words. Quote. But Tieja rarely agreed with Bang Hao's approach this time. It sounds like a mess, but what this guy says makes sense. Quote. That smoke man is obviously the key person in charge of the other party's transfer. If you don't want the enemy to leave easily, then catching him is a must. Well, has been with Shangming for a long time, and Tai Jie has also become contaminated with the habit of thinking, but when he is by Shangming's side, he will subconsciously hand over this work to the other party to do. This can be seen as trust, or it can be seen as laziness. I didn't expect you to have something in your iron head. Bang Hao said in a very bad attitude. Cut. You probably didn't think about this at all, and decided to do it all out of your own character, right? Tetsu sneered disdainfully. Although he may not be able to beat Bang Hao, this is not a reason for him to coax. Say whatever you want. But this time, Bang Hao didn't argue anything, and ran out quickly. Bang Hao! Kirishima shouted. Let's go too. Tai Jie patted him on the shoulder, and then unsteeled and followed, but because his legs had been specially trained, he ran surprisingly fast. Kirishima had no choice but to return to normalcy and follow. But the blaster at the front was unhappy. He turned around directly and said angrily, don't follow me. Perhaps, only Midoriya can understand some of Bang Hao's words, although it sounds very arrogant and domineering, but in fact, it hides the feeling of worrying about something happening to Tai Jie and them. After all, he is going to fight the opponent's boss alone this time. Who's following you? I'm going to find Shangming. Tai Jie pouted and replied, I think that Shangming should have solved the problem at this time, and even I can think that the black smoke man is the key, then he must be able to think of this. Ask for flowers. Are you the golden retriever's henchman? Why do you have to chase after his ass everywhere? Bang Hao sneered as he looked at Tai Jie, who was catching up beside him. Yes. Quote. Tai Jie nodded calmly and said, for people like you, you shouldn't be able to understand the so-called friendship between men. Quote. Cut. Disgusting. Bang Hao made a disgusted look, but he didn't know why. But the green-haired boy who had been following him and being bullied by himself all the time came to his mind, but when he was in danger, he rushed over to save him without hesitation. Stinky for a long time. Don't give me death. On the other side, Shangming had already arrived at the gate of USJ with Erlang, 8,102, that is, where they were before they were teleported. Teacher 13, exclaimed 13, who was looking at the destruction of his spacesuit. Shangming, 800. Erlang, Leary, who had not been teleported away before, Ishido-sana and the others raised their hands in surprise to greet them. Has the teacher been killed? Shangming thought silently, then glanced around vigilantly and asked, what about the bastard? I guess that, Black Smoke, disappeared on his own after the Iida squad leader rushed out. The tall shoji said. There it is. Shangming turned around and looked into the distance, and found that where the enemy appeared before, in addition to nearly 100 minions lying down, in the farther away, he could indeed faintly see a few figures. The black guy is the most conspicuous. Don't move here, I'll go support Aizawa Bandao. Shangming said with a serious expression. Shangming, you still want to go back? Said 8 million in surprise as they looked at Shangming's back. It's too dangerous. Erlang also did not support this approach. Are we going to watch the class guide fight a large number of enemies alone? Shangming insisted on his decision, and then turned his head slightly and comforted. Don't worry, I collected the 50 steel balls before, and there will definitely be no problem in the group battle. Steel balls. Leary and the others, who didn't know the situation, couldn't understand what they were saying, but Shangming didn't explain, but directly started to move at high speed, turned into a golden lightning afterimage and ran out. But the words, First Eye Thunder Shadow, printed behind him are vivid in the wind. Underscore. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collection and recommendation. Chapter 63. That's Aizawa Class Guide. The upward sound of the crackling electricity was still a little far away, but it was already possible to see the situation over there more clearly. But when he saw with his own eyes that the class guide was pressed into a pool of blood on the ground with his big hands by a strange guy whose brain was exposed, he still felt a huge shock. Is it defeated? The class guide is. But when I thought of the nearly 100 enemies who had fainted on the road when I first came, I felt that I could understand the difficulties of Aizawa Bandao. After all, he was alone. Huh. At this time, Sheng Ming saw the white-haired boy with gloves on his body, suddenly rushing towards the river, and quickly looked to the other end with some confusion. It's Midori Valley, wow, blow them. Seeing this, he instantly released more electricity, forcibly endured the pain in the muscles of his body, and let his speed skyrocket by another 2%. But it's still too slow, 613, too far. On the other side, the bastard's hand was already close to wow blow, and although Kamina didn't know what his personality was, it felt like nothing good would happen no matter how he thought about it. Please, let me get close to a distance of 50 meters. Shengming was in a hurry. Although he didn't have the desire to be a hero, he definitely didn't want to see his classmates do anything in front of him. He swears, as long as he is allowed to get close to the distance of 50 meters in time, he will not hesitate to punch the silver coin in his fingertips into the head of that white-haired boy. Damn. It's too late. Kaminari, who was moving at high speed, looked at the other party's hand in despair, and was about to press it on Waobuki's completely frozen face. Huh. But in the next second, the white-haired boy's hand stopped weirdly. This situation made Shengming's mood improve all of a sudden, but he immediately rushed to the bottom like a roller coaster, because he and the other party both found out that it was Aizawa Bandao who desperately raised his blood-stained head and erased his personality in time. Cut. Quote. The dead-handled wooden hanger, which covered his face with white gloves, looked back with some unpleasantness. You're really handsome, eraser. Head. Bang. But immediately Aizawa Bandao was slammed into the blood pit by Brain Wu, and this time he really lost consciousness. Oops, oops, oops. The young man of Midori Valley, who rioted without saying a word, and directly launched the OFA power and slammed it towards the wooden crane with the dead handle, and at this moment his entire right arm once again emitted a reddish light. Give me my hands down. Smash. There was even a pale white flow mark on Midoriya's fist, which was a natural obstacle that could only appear when an incomparably huge force exerted great pressure on the air in a short period of time. Super Electromagnetic Cannon. On the other side, at the moment when Aizawa Bandao lost consciousness, Kamina also entered his maximum attack range, and without a trace of hesitation, he directly shot out the amount of coins. Boom. In the next moment, Midoriya's right fist and golden beam of light hit the target almost at the same time, followed by the ferocious wave of chi, which not only blew out all the debris and minions around him, but also pushed the river next to him like a tsunami. Phew. Even Shengming was forcibly stopped by the fierce wind in his face, and he was very embarrassed to keep his figure in front of him while blocking it with his arms. The platinum robe on his body was also blown to the ground, but fortunately, the previous support company did not inject water in terms of quality. Although I've seen it once before. But, ahem, how did this exaggerated power come about? Shengming really couldn't imagine how a 15-year-old boy could hit such a scene with one hand, like the explosion of a tactical missile. 10 seconds later, the wind subsided, the smoke cleared, and Kamime's vision returned to normal. That guy should be dead, right? He absolutely didn't believe that Baimao could still survive under the fire of his super electromagnetic cannon and Midoriya's punch. Don't talk about him. Even if you change to other professional heroes, you can't survive, right? It didn't work. Midoriya, who was still happy that he had played a perfect smash, couldn't help but show a look of disbelief on his face when he saw the head that had blocked his punch at some point and looked unscathed. How is that possible? Shengming, who approached on the other side, was also full of shock. What did that brain monster appear there? No, that's not the point. How did he survive that kind of attack? At the same time, in the mind of the young man Midoriya, he recalled what he had said before. Those guys have already figured out a strategy to kill Olmut, that's why they messed around like this, right? Could it be that this guy is? Suddenly, the dead-handled wooden hanging hiding in his brain looked at Midoriya and said, your movements are very beautiful, smash. You can't be a follower of Olmut. After speaking, I saw him turn his head again and look at Shangming coldly. "And you, I was almost killed by you just now. As the hero of the hero department, are your methods too ruthless?" Quote. The dead-handled wooden crane felt very clearly that the golden beam of light just now was coming towards his head. If he hadn't caught it with his hand in time, he would probably have been shot in the head by now. Quote. Shangming just smiled at this, very disdainful of answering this mentally retarded question, and then mocked. "Are you really a villain? Why are you so naive? Is it because you came out for an internship?" He accentuated the word, internship. "When you fall in front of me, I hope you can still talk like this." Dead-handled Woodhang said in a low voice, "Well, he's a little angry." Brainless. Get him. With the command issued, the huge brain did not directly abandon the three people of Midoriya who were close at hand, but rushed to the upward roar at supersonic speed, and the specific manifestation was that it disappeared. The kind that doesn't even have an afterimage. It's so fast. In the face of such a crushing speed, Shangming couldn't react at all, except that his mind was still running at this moment, and even his eyes had completely failed. He had expected that the opponent's strength was very strong, and he originally wanted to use his high-speed movement 3.8 movements and super electromagnetic cannon to engage in a kite-style delaying battle while trying to drag the support from the Xiangyang side to arrive. But I didn't expect that the reality was so cruel, and the other party actually blew him up directly in terms of speed. Seeing the tall monster that appeared vaguely in front of him again, Kamime thought unwillingly. "I'm going to. Dead." Bang. The surging chi wave erupted again, but the power generated this time was not as great as before, most likely because Brain Wu felt that he didn't need to use too much power against Shangming. But the lowest dust and sand below still spiraled into the sky, enveloping everything around it. "What's the situation?" said the dead-handled wooden hanger, hiding his face. "P.S. Thanks to Mr. Trace's 3200 tip. Love D is the 1000 tip of the prison. 100 tip of the snow peas invited by the monkey. _ To see the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Feilu novel. Chapter 64. What's the situation? It stands to reason that catching a Shangming should be a matter of hand-to-hand capture, and there shouldn't be such a big scene. Shangming, Midoriya, Wow Blow, and Mineta looked at the smoke in amazement, and a bad feeling gradually appeared in their hearts. Wouldn't he be dead? Minoru Mineta was so frightened that he couldn't care about anything else, and said without holding back. But for his words, Midoriya and Wow Blow did not refute with iron faces, and at this time, a heroic and familiar laughter suddenly came from the smoke. "Ha ha ha, it's already a big husband. Phew." A tall, stout blonde figure, while holding down the struggling Brain Wu, with all his might, showed his white teeth and smiled, "Because I'm here." Olmit. Shangming stared blankly at the back of the man standing in front of him, and at the same time realized that he was saved. It's hero. At this moment, it can be regarded as refreshing the concept of heroes in his heart. At this moment Olmit is his hero, the hero who saved his life and saved his life. Although this is not the highest title bestowed by the state. But in his heart, it is enough to be extremely tall. Maybe. Those who have also been saved by other heroes. I think so. For people who have saved their lives, it is really difficult to identify them as simply good people. This kind of feeling of identifying a person as a hero from the bottom of one's heart may only be truly understood by those who have experienced it firsthand, from despair to hope. "Olmit," Midoriya exclaimed in surprise. "Are you coming?" There was an excited look in the eyes of the dead-handle game. "You can go on. I'm so angry with myself." Olmit glanced at the three people of Midoriya who were full of surprise with their faces, and Aizawa-sensei who was lying in a pool of blood not far away, thinking with chagrin in his heart. How frightened the children should be, and how hard the younger generations should be. At this time, the dead-handled wooden crane impatiently ordered, "Brain no." What a power! Olmit instantly felt that the power of the brain was increasing rapidly, which made him shout anxiously, "Boy Shangming, back off." Crackle. Shangming's face changed, and he didn't do much nonsense, and directly started to move at high speed, trying his best to distance himself from Olmit. This level of combat is no longer something you can meddle in. Boom. Not long after Shangming left, there was another fierce wave of chi that he had felt twice today, and under this terrible force, he involuntarily retreated again and again, and only stopped after retreating to 70 or 80 meters. Isn't it Just one over-the-shoulder fall smashed a circle of nearly half a meter out of the ground with a radius of more than 10 meters. Shangming felt that his knowledge was rising wildly today, although he had seen the power of Olmec in the video before, but how could it be compared to the feeling of this live version at this time? That kind of momentum and power that was so powerful that it made the hairs on his whole body stand up. Ah! Just when Kamime was amazed, the figure of Armit instantly appeared beside him, and he was still holding Midoriya, Wabuki, Minda, and the bloody Aizawa Bandao in his arms. Young man Kamime, you hurry up and leave here with Aizawa-sensei, and don't interfere in the next battle. Shangming nodded speechlessly to indicate that he knew that he couldn't say anything now, and this speed was really nonsense. Oops, too bad. The body of the dead-handled wooden crane shook a little unsteadily. Saving people and beating people at the same time. It is truly recognized by the state as. It's so fast, my eyes can't keep up with it. At this time, the black fog that had dispersed Shangming and the others to all corners of USJ no longer dared to watch the play from a distance, and directly used his personality to teleport to the side of the dead-handled wooden crane. It's better for us to stay away, and Olmec will hand it over to Shu's brain. But the dead-handled wooden crane had no intention of moving, just looked at Olmec's back from afar and said. But he doesn't seem to be as strong as expected. Maybe that rumor is true, Olmec, it's really getting weaker. At the same time, Olmec once again returned to the front of Brain Wu, with a bug-like speed and a heavy expression, and from the wave of exchanges just now, he had already recognized the opponent's strange power and ability to resist blows. Then let me see how far you can play. Carolina. Smash. In the rear, Midoriya wanted to obey Armit's orders, and left with Kamina, Frogbuki, and Minoru Mineta with Aizawa Bandao. But I don't know if it's because I have a heart or what, I subconsciously looked back and was shocked to see that Armit was in a desperate situation of dying under the combination of brain nothing and black mist. At this moment, the young man of Midoriya directly handed over the Aizawa class guide to the frog blowing them, and then turned around and ran back, and even crystal tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Armit, I have a lot of things to ask you. Armit. Shangming really felt tired when he saw Midoriya's actions. To be honest, he really didn't want to go back now. The speed and strength shown by the brain monster, and Olmec just now made him feel completely insecure at this time. But you can't watch him die. So be it. In the next second, Shangming turned on the high-speed movement again, and after the current activated the cells, the latter first caught up with Midoriya, and then gently sliced at the back of his neck with an electrified hand knife. On. Kamime. Midoriya watched in disbelief as he fell into Kamina's arms, tears streaming down his cheeks from the corners of his eyes. Why, don't you see that Armit is going to die? This young man, who has always been cowardly and gentle, roared wildly in his heart at this time, but he didn't obey his mouth, so he could only stare at Shangming with red eyes, and in addition to anger, there was also a little begging in his eyes. But Shangming was indifferent to his eyes, just quietly looked at the restrained Armit, and from the eyes of Armit he saw the approval. Obviously he himself was trembling in pain. That's right, this is the way that Shangming thought of in a hurry. He didn't want to go over and send Midoriya to death, and he didn't want Midoriya to die, so he could only use Reggae to temporarily block Midoriya's ability to move. That's the best he can think of right now. But boom. A violent explosion suddenly appeared, and the flames and smoke that reflected the face instantly enveloped the area in front of him. Let go of Armit. Blast's roar came straight through the billowing smoke, and at the same time, an indifferent layer of ice appeared on the ground and covered the legs of the brain nothing, freezing its two joints. I've heard that the task of killing Armit is up to a few of you, so I'm here to take a look. The boom boy calmly looked at the dead-handled wooden crane and said. And us. Kirishima and Tetsutsu also jumped out, besieging the dead-handled wooden crane left and right, but this guy was unexpectedly nimble, and in a few small steps, he flashed the hard fist and iron leg that attacked. Then he distanced himself from them, and the whole set of movements seemed to be very easy, and it was obvious that he had also received a lot of training. A symbol of peace is not something you scum can kill. Quote. At this time, Olmec managed to get out, and stood with Bang Jiao Leng with an ugly face. At this moment, the situation looks perfect, giving people the feeling that they are surrounded by each other, but only Armit and Shangming know, this is not the case at all. These guys. I don't know the details of that, brain nothing. Get out of here, boys. At this time, the brain nothing on the opposite side reborn his right arm and left leg at a speed visible to the naked eye 713, which made Olmec and the others stunned. What's going on? Isn't his personality shock absorption? Dead Handlewood hanging sneered. I didn't say that he only has one personality, this is super regeneration. This special brain is specially modified to resist you in 100% state. Quote. After speaking, he looked at the black fog that was restrained by the explosion. However, the first thing to do is to take back the entrance. Go, no brain. Quote. Not good. Shang Ming secretly said that it was not good, and just wanted to open his mouth to remind Bang Hao. The figure of Brain Wu disappeared in an instant, and the next moment it erupted again with a strong impact, blowing the surrounding Bang, Tai Jie and others back again and again. So, this level of combat is already beyond the limit. Then Shang Ming's eyes stared at the dead handle wooden hanging. If I succeed in mastering that move, at least I may be able to kill one of the other parties. But now he didn't dare to act rashly at all, for fear that he would accidentally suddenly get involved in the battle between Armit and Brain Wu. Bang Hao, you dodged? Kirishima asked in surprise when he saw the explosion Ho who appeared next to him at some point. It's weird, shut up, red hair. Bang Hao stared at the smoke without turning his head, thinking back to what had just happened, but he didn't see anything, not even the nerve reaction he had always been so proud of, as if it had failed in that instant. You guys get out of there. At this time, Shangming's shout came from a distance, and the boys subconsciously looked over, and at a glance they saw Shangming holding Green Valley. You're there now, you're only going to add a burden to Olmec. It's not a battle we can participate in. He really didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be if that brainless blow hit Tai Jie and them. At this moment he deeply felt the height of the ceiling of this world. P.S. Thanks to Yu's 588 tip. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collection and recommendation. Chapter 65. He. On the other side, Olmec stood in front of the stone wall that had been shattered by himself, panting as he looked at the dead-handled wooden hanger, anger suppressed in his voice. You guys, don't you know how to measure it all? There's no way around it. Quote. We're also for our own companions, so understand, hero. Quote. Then he made a gesture of concern and dissatisfaction, and pointed to Kamime and Midoriya in the distance. Didn't you just do too? Look, that little turtle over there, but if he's going to punch me hard, with the power of his punch, if he really gets hit, I should have been beaten to death by now, right? By the way, there's that blonde kid, he's the scariest of all. Is this guy really a hero? He tried to in the head directly, such a fierce and cold-blooded guy feels like an enemy than me. These words made Bang Hao, Tai Jie, Bang and others subconsciously look in the direction of Shang Ming. Then the sound and posture of the dead-handled wooden crane gradually became fanatical. Violence for the sake of others can be a good talk, but for oneself it can only become an enemy, right, hero? I've always been angry about this, Olmec. He spread his arms and faced Olmec, who was bleeding from the corners of his mouth, and his voice rose a few heights from before. Even though they are all violent, they have to be divided into heroes and enemies, and use this to determine the world of good and evil. What a symbol of peace. In the final analysis, you are nothing more than a violent machine used by the state to carry out repression. In the end, he made a small summary while explaining his purpose. Violence only produces violence. I'm going to tell the world by killing you, come on. I have to say that the quality of his carefully prepared speech is indeed very good, and at this time, the eyes of Bang, Tetsu, Kirishima and others have begun to waver, because these words seem to make sense. As for Bang Hao, he only treats these words as a fart, and he will definitely not let him want to slaughter the other party's heart and be affected in the slightest. Should this be said that he is strong-willed, or is his brain simple? Nonsense. As soon as Armit was about to refute, he heard the distant Shangming reply loudly and disdainfully. Violence only produces violence. That's right. Huh. Death-handled Mew turned his head to look at him in surprise. You agree with me? At this moment, not to mention that he, the enemy, villain, was stunned, even guys like Bang Hao couldn't understand the meaning of Shangming, let alone others. Then I listened to Naruto continue. I agree, but it's good to prove it and tell the world, right? Shangming looked directly at the dead-handled wooden crane with a gaze that looked like he was mentally retarded. How did the current professional heroes emerge as a system? Isn't it because of the appearance of you idiots who wantonly use personality and violence and try to do whatever they want that those who want a stable and harmonious society are forced to stand up? Male. Don't make a mistake about the order, retarded white hair. After speaking, he asked contemptuously, speaking of this kind of historical relationship, everyone who has been to elementary school knows it, haven't you ever gone to school? You, guy. Although the previous speech was not his intention, being so completely humiliated still made him angry, especially the last sentence, which was like a needle piercing the heart. Hurt. Brainless. In the next second, after recapturing the black mist, Brain Wu, who remained on standby, understood what he meant very strangely, and directly rioted and rushed to the top, but its disappearing figure soon reappeared in everyone's sight. Don't underestimate the heroes. Enemies. Armit gripped Brain Nothing's arms and shouted angrily, then raised his stout right leg and kicked it in the abdomen, sending its entire body flying backwards like a cannonball. Olmit. Looks like it's time to get started. The boy said coldly. Ah, even though they're all amazing-looking guys. Kirishima squeezed his fists and tensed. But Armit stopped them again, and at the same time slowly walked towards the Brain Nothing, who had already stopped his body. Get out of here. This made the young man who was calm but arrogant a little unconvinced. Wouldn't it have been nice if I hadn't helped me just now? These are two different things, boom boy. Armit said calmly. Thank you. He didn't mean to compromise at all, because it was about the lives of these students, but he still thanked Bang Jiao from the bottom of his heart. After all, he did save his own life just now. But, big husband, please take a good look at how serious the professional heroes are. At this time, the young man of Midoriya who was supported by Shangming had also recovered, but he had calmed down, and he didn't mean to complain about Shangming at all, but shouted to Armit anxiously. But you're hurt, and your time isn't. When? The attentive Shangming noticed the word, which gave him a bad premonition, if. If Armit has a time limit, and once the time is up, there will be any surprises. Then there's really going to be a big deal next. If there is no core combat power of Olmit, then even if all the students, including him, joined forces, it will not be the opponent of the brainless. What do you mean by time? Shangming just wanted to ask, but was directly interrupted by Olmit, only to see him suddenly give a thumbs up and show a heroic and confident smile. Dazong Wang Qinhao, husband. Then he turned directly to face the Brain Nothing, and at the same time began to calculate his time in his mind. Is there about a minute left? Brainless, black fog, hands. Quote. Dead Handlewood Hanging also felt that it was time for a decisive battle, and then glanced sideways at the students in the distance, and finally stopped on Shangming. I'm going to deal with those imps. Quote. Okay, hurry up and get through this pass and go back to the neighborhood. After speaking, he directly rushed to Bang Hao and the others, not to mention that he was serious, and it really brought a lot of pressure to Bang and the others. Boom. Wow. In the next second, whether it was the dead-handled wooden crane in the black fog that had already started, or the elites of Class A who were ready to fight, they were all instantly pushed aside by the surging waves of anger generated by the simple fist of Olmit and Brain Wu like an opening show. I am a symbol of peace. To see the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Feilu novel. Chapter 66. Under the fury of Armit, the ferocious wind erupted with all its strength centered on him and the two of them, and the surrounding ground was as if it had been bombarded by a meteorite, and large swaths of it were shattered and broken. At the same time, a large number of broken earth and bricks were swept into the air by the air waves, and the chaotic rotation around the two of them at high speed did not stop, and they collided with each other in motion, turning into smaller and more dangerous forms. The dead-handled wooden crane that was pushed away by the wind and rolled into the air was very sensitive to a few heels in the violent air waves, and finally landed firmly, while Bang Hao and Bang were a little embarrassed when they were caught off guard. As for Kamime and Midoriya, well, because of the distance he was in, he just crouched down slightly and lowered his head to resist the incoming air waves. Hey, hey, hey. Didn't you already know that he had an impact-absorbing personality? Yes, that's true. But Armit still maintained a confident smile, and he just got up with no madness, and every collision between them would bring waves of air explosions and winds, and the ground under his feet was cracked, and it could be said that it was quite miserable to be ravaged. Holy! Shangming saw the scene of the frontal fight between each other about 70 meters away, and directly exploded, as this, Dragon Ball. At this time, he could only see the vague standing figures of the two of Armit through the heavy waves, and the 907 strong. As for their arms, they were completely invisible, and there was no afterimage at all. It's like two giant men with no arms, standing silently in the eye of a hurricane and looking at each other. Good, so strong. Tetsutsu, Kirishima and the others looked at this scene dumbfounded. This is top. Damn, I can't get close to it at all. The dead-handle wooden crane on the other side, the two of them were also shocked and depressed. Now in this situation, unless they go around in a big circle, they don't want to get close to Shengming them, and at this time, a flash of inspiration flashed in the mind of the dead handle. Black mist, we teleported to those little ghosts, no matter if the brain is unable to finally suppress Armit, as long as we kill a student, then this operation is not without gain. As long as one student dies, all the reserves of Na Xiangying and Olmut will be completely ripped off by us. Maybe he didn't realize that his confidence in Brain Wu was not as great as it was at the beginning, but Black Mist agreed with it when he heard this, and he didn't talk nonsense and directly activated his personality, rolled up the death-handled wooden crane with purple-black energy, and then disappeared in place in an instant. What to do? What should we do now? Kirishima asked loudly. No way, the momentum on Armit's side was too exaggerated, coupled with the fierce wind blowing in his face, he had to speak so uncomfortably loudly. Hell knows. Bakuho replied impatiently, he was angry at his weakness. Kamime is right, this is not a battle that we can meddle in at all. The boy made an icicle in front of him to block the air waves, and squinted his eyes and thought. But for some reason, he remembered the man he hated the most. Is this the person you've been chasing all your life that hasn't caught up? Anderwa. Quote. Be careful. At this moment, there was a warning sound from behind, and a crackling sound from afar. Huh. At this moment, Bang Hao's eyes were cold, and Superman's nervous reaction speed came into play again, and he didn't even think about it at all. He quickly turned sideways with his feelings, and then stretched out his palm behind him. Boom. The flames and smoke danced again in the violent explosion, and the surrounding three people, Bang, Tetsutsu, and Kirishima, all used their personalities to resist the aftermath of the explosion. Isn't it amazing? Quote. After the smoke cleared, the dead-handled wooden crane stood surrounded by the black mist. Looking at Bang Hao with some surprise, he was sure that there was no sound from the sneak attack just now. This guy. Bang Hao stared at the dead-handled wooden crane like a vicious villain, and threatened, come here, right? Since you're here, don't go back, let me blow your head off like a balloon. At this time, plus Shengming, who rushed over, the two of Midoriya, who can almost be said to be the strongest people in A, surrounded the two of them in the middle. I don't think you'd better volunteer heroes, villains seem to be the best fit for you. Quote. Death-handled wooden hanging didn't care about the situation CJCF and extended an invitation to Bang Hao, saying, you are a natural thug. Get out, die. Bang Hao couldn't hold back any longer, and rushed over to launch an attack, shouting at the same time. Boom. Separate these two people, then deal with this white hair with me. That, Smoke Man, was handed over to Bang Hao. Tai J, you are entangled in the island. Bursting into a rage, he shouted, shut up. And then turned his head and blasted at the black mist. Don't give orders to me, Raiden bastard. The boom boy didn't reply, but just when the black mist blocked the explosion of Bang Hao, he used all his strength to activate the frozen personality of his right body, and instantly created a large icicle mountain more than 10 meters high. And it happened to be between the dead-handle wooden crane and the black mist, forcing them to retreat to both sides, and this operation made Shengming have to praise 666. Especially the size of this iceberg, it made his eyes look weird when he looked at the boy, if he didn't know that it was impossible, otherwise he would really wonder if this guy was the son of Kuzan and Estes. I'm also a white-haired. Then he stepped on the ice that continued to stretch out under his feet, and just after coming to Shengming, he said coldly. I'm sorry. Quote. Shengming smiled awkwardly, and then advised, the other party's personality is concentrated in the hand, although I don't know the specific ability, it's better not to be touched. The boy nodded calmly. Bang, bang, bang. Then the figure stopped suddenly, and with a slight step on his right foot, the ground in front of his feet continued to rise one icicle after another, and quickly attacked the dead-handled wooden crane that rushed over. Then get him on the way. That's right. With the corners of his mouth curled, Kamina pulled out a coin and aimed at the death-handled wooden crane that was approaching like a ninja in the distance, as he deftly dodged most of the icicle attacks. What about me? Midoriya behind him was a little panicked. He looked at the two battlefields on the left and right of the iceberg, and he was a little unsure where to go to help. I don't know. Quote. Shangming naturally pouted and said, there are too many uncertain factors in your personality, find your own time. Boom. At this time, the dead-handled wooden crane was only a dozen meters away from them, and Shangming knew that he couldn't delay it any longer, so he directly found an opportunity for the other party to dodge the icicle and shot the super electromagnetic cannon out. The golden beam bloomed again, and the speed was still extremely fast, but this time it did not hit any targets, and after crossing the maximum range of 50 meters, it dissipated into the air with a faint smell of sulfur. It's just a faster, more powerful bullet. The dead-handled wooden hanging stretched out his right hand and pressed it towards Shangming, who had not yet withdrawn his arm, and said coldly, as long as you dodge and advance before you attack. Quote. Under the careful cultivation of the master, he doesn't know how much combat training he has received, but in terms of his own strength and experience, he has completely exploded these little ghosts who have just entered high school. Be a sacrifice before the subversion of this society, little ghost. Underscore. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collection and recommendation. Chapter 67, Kamime. Seeing this scene in the back, the Midoriya boy once again felt remorse for his incompetence. If he could use OFA as skillfully as Olmet, then he would be able to protect his classmates now, instead of just watching like he is now. Bang! The dead-handled wooden hanging smashed the icicles that rose from the ground with one palm, and then unstoppably continued to press the face that roared upwards. No matter. 100,000 volts. At this life-and-death juncture, Shangming could no longer take care of the booming boy beside him, and in order to protect himself, he did not hesitate to discharge his whole body, trying to force back the death-handled wooden crane. Sure enough, there was a brief pause when the other person's hand touched the current group, but the strange thing was that the current did not spread normally along the glove, as if there was an invisible shield blocking the current, allowing his hand to continue to approach. Well, it seems that combat uniforms are something, not only the patent of the hero side, these enemies obviously also have a provider of combat uniforms. At least the other party's gloves must have the effect of lightning protection and high-temperature protection. Whoa! But the pause that appeared just now still made Shangming turn on the high-speed movement, in time and exit, well. He also pulled the boy who was electrocuted. Huh. Dead-handle wooden crane stopped and looked at Shangming's speed curiously. What kind of trick is that? Could it be that your personality is not only thunder and lightning, but also speed ability? Phew. Help me help him. Quote. Kamime embarrassedly handed the bomb to Midoriya, as if it was the second time he had used his personality on his classmates, and then sneered at the dead-handle wooden hang. So it's terrible to say that you have no culture, you still need to chew on a few more textbooks. Enough. Hearing this, the dead-handled wooden hanging shouted irritably, and then showed a cruel look and sneered. Now there is no such thing as the guy who put the ice in the way, see how you stop me. With a thud, he rushed over again, his palms ready to spread, like a white cheetah in a hunting state. Cut, take advantage of a little bit of the upper hand, but you can put up with it. Shangming pursed his lips disdainfully, and then directly took out the small bag containing 50 steel balls that his 8 million classmates had made for him before, and then smeared a layer of electricity again, and threw it over. His idea is very simple, since the single super electromagnetic cannon is easy to be flashed by the other party, then use a wide range of tricks to limit the other party. I don't believe that he has the ability to insulate his whole body. Lightning chain. 500,000 volts. Crackling. The current and golden light, which was stronger than before, were once again connected with 50 steel balls, and the timing was very precise to trap the dead-handled wood in the center. As for the duration, as long as the Shangming keeps providing the output of the current, they won't fall or dissipate. Well, on the other hand, it's also a rather power-consuming trick, but it's not worth mentioning compared to the effect. After all, it can be attacked and defended, and it can be a single group. What? Just when the dead-handled wooden crane was in doubt, looking at the dangerous gold currents around him, Shangming's side broke in without any scruples, and these connected currents in a linear shape did not hinder or affect him. Do you dare to try one? Huh. In the high-speed moving state, in the golden electric winding, a full force jumped above the head of the dead-handled wooden crane, and then opened his arms and closed his eyes with a handsome smile. Feel the pain, experience the pain, accept the pain, understand the pain. He who does not know pain will not know what peace is. Quote. Million volts. Crackling. Golden light, still golden light. Midoriya boy's eyes had long since closed, but he could still feel the light and burning through his eyelids, and the thunder that filled his ears. Even the 8 million, Erlang and the others, who had gathered in front of the gate hundreds of meters away, looked at this golden thunder field with huge icebergs in amazement. That's Kamime. On the other hand, on Armit's side, his battle is coming to an end, because the time is really coming up. Enemy, have you ever heard of such a saying? Rushing to the farther away. As soon as he blurted out this sentence, Olmit completely broke through his limit, concentrated all his strength on his right fist, and then poured it all into Brainwoo's body in one go. Plus alter. Bang. It's hard to imagine how many tons of power his punch has, but the heat rising from the fist and the scorching fire that burst out the moment it touches Brainwoo's chest, you can feel the great horror in it. Boom. This scientific truth is vividly expressed at this moment, when the brain did not break through the layers of sound barriers and the air waves flew out of the ceiling of the USJ, Olmit's body was already unbearable, and once again it was devastated. What's going on with this tremor? Ask for flowers 00. In the storm area, Totomi Tayoshi and Kuchida Kasi looked up at the sky in the pouring rain, and around them were minions lying all over the ground. The tailed white ape man in the area of the fire, sweating profusely and enduring the scorching heat, silently guessed what was happening. Just now. Fly out. It's an enemy, isn't it? At the entrance of the USJ, Hiro Fanta, who was holding teacher number 13 with Shojiko, hesitated to look at the contaminated sky above and asked. This power. It's Olmit. No one can do anything so great but him. Minoru Mineta, who was frightened, could no longer hold back the fear and nervousness in his heart, and tears of joy flowed from the corners of his eyes. After all, they were all children who had just graduated from junior high school. It's a comic book plot, at all. 0. Taijay half squatted on the ground, cooperating with Kirishima to suppress the subdued black fog, while looking at the ceiling that had blasted out a big hole, and muttered to himself, I actually bombarded the upper limit of impact absorption to the ground and there was no left. Ah, this is the ultimate brute victory. Kirishima looked wistfully at Olmit's back. This style is the hardcore victory he has been pursuing. What an outrageous power. That is to say, the onslaught he launched made the other party's regeneration speed not keep up at all. Quote. Standing on the sidelines, Bang Hao's mood at this time was complicated. Olmit was the object he vowed to surpass, but now this scene made him deeply understand the huge gap with the other party. This is the symbol of peace. Is this the world of professions? Interesting. In the smoke, Armit gulped in oxygen and smiled. It's really weakened. In its heyday, it only takes 5 punches. Now it's more than 300 punches. Immediately after that, white steam began to emerge from his body. Not much, but it did exist, like a water furnace with several holes. And, time's up. Quote. But fortunately, the teenagers seem to have solved it there, so that's good. That's great. Armit. Ah, no, Kamime. With one hand, he held the Green Valley boy who was still a little unsteady, and looked at Olmit worriedly, and then looked at Shangming Electric who became very strange on the side. What the hell is wrong with you? Hey. 0. To see the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Feilu novel. Chapter 68. But just when the young man Midoriya was in a dilemma, some of the minions who had been beaten down by Aizawa Bandao before staggered to their feet again. Obviously, most of them are physically strong alien species. These gangsters, who were originally wandering in the corners of the edge, didn't pay attention to the situation around them at all, and when they saw Shangming and Bang Hao, they rushed over again with a roar. I don't know what they said to these gangsters, or what they gave, and they were like this. Brainless loyalty. Naturally, the people on the Xiangying side will not understand this, and they will never even be able to understand it. Only the gangsters who are the parties know what the enemy alliance has given them, or what the adult has given them. Yes, need. The sir said that they are needed. This is said to those who have personality and have been abandoned by society, but deep down they yearn for 093 needs invaluable losers. And for those who are born without personality like Midoriya boy, or who are dissatisfied with their own personality, he gives them a chance to have a personality, a chance to improve their personality. Need and opportunity are the two most common and best weapons that The one uses when collecting minions, and they rarely fail, so they can be called invincible. This is actually the cheat that he has been able to rule the dark world for decades. Just 2 words, almost satisfying the psychology of all the low-level scum, plus the cooperation of his own personality. What to do, what to do? The green ghost boy looked at Olmut, who was standing in place with white smoke in the distance, and then looked at the smirking up and down while walking back and forth with a thumbs up, and the booming classmate in his arms. He was completely confused. What should he do? It's clear that Olmut's side can't fight anymore. It's a secret that only he knows. Let me go. Quote. At this time, classmate Bang slowly left Midoriya's arms, and then looked at Shangming with some mixed feelings. Well, the expression is still very perfect calm. Great. Then I'll leave it to you. After saying that, the young man of Midoriya ran to Olmut with an anxious face, and on the other side of the iceberg, Bang Hao and Kirishima stood on the front line to prepare for the battle, while Tai Jie was responsible for suppressing the black mist. Bang! Suddenly, a dull gunshot rang out to attract everyone's attention, followed by more gunshots erupting from the fiery muzzles, turning into hot bullets whistling through the air like locusts. Finally, he flies through many obstacles at a very tricky angle and shoots accurately into the thigh or arm of a famous minion, and is a professional hero, sniper, teacher. Finally. Are you coming? Olmut's expression suddenly relaxed. I'm sorry guys, we're late. Principal Nezu sat on the head of teacher, Vlad, the class teacher of Class B of the hero course, and said to all the teachers and students in USJ with a group of Shangying teachers beside him. I gathered everyone who could do it right away. Quote. Iida-kun. Leary shouted as he looked at Iida-san, who was standing at the very edge, with his eyes watered. A1 squad leader, Amaya Iida, is officially back to report. The Iida boy pulled his thick neck loudly, and his volume was completely several times that of the previous principal, which showed how excited he was at this time. But I have to say that the effect is very good, not only gained the recognition and goodwill of all his students, but also directly woke up the short-circuit state of Shangming. Quote. Shangming looked at himself, and then looked up and saw the strange eyes of the boy, and instantly understood what was going on. Step, step, step. I saw him step over the blackened wooden crane with his head down and expressionlessly, and slowly walk to the front of the young man step by step, and then under the calm gaze of the other party, he leaned into his right ear and whispered. If you dare to speak out, I will kill you. Quote. The boy was stunned for a moment, then took a step back and distanced himself from him, and replied coldly. Midoriya also saw it. Quote. Same. Shangming said angrily with some annoyance. Whoever of you two dares to say it, just wait to enjoy electrotherapy every day. Boring. Quote. The boy turned his head to look elsewhere, as if he didn't want to pay attention to this childish ghost. In the end, Shangming could only sigh helplessly, and then turned around a little depressedly, ready to see if the white hair was dead. Poof. But at this moment, an abnormality occurred again, the wooden crane with a dead handle that fell to the ground and the other side of the iceberg. The black mist that was pressed by Tai Jie was instantly enveloped by a black and green sewage that appeared out of thin air and emitted a foul smell. It stinks. Tai Jie was so stimulated by this extreme smell, he subconsciously let go of the black mist, and then looked at the sewage on his body with a disgusted face. 0. What? At this time, the teacher and the teacher of the cement division, who had been assigned by Principal Nezu, rushed over at midnight and immediately stood in front of the students to watch the situation vigilantly. Puff. On Shangming's side, after the sewage completely wrapped the dead-handled wooden crane, with a sound similar to diving, the sewage disappeared out of thin air again, and it was together with the dead-handled wooden crane. The black fog on the other side was naturally the same, disappearing cleanly in front of the eyes of the cement division teacher and Bang Hao and others. Well, aside from the stench remaining in the air, and the damp marks on the ground, there was no evidence that they had been there. Teleportation again. Shangming scratched his blonde hair a little speechlessly and complained, how did he feel that this kind of powerful personality seemed to be in the enemy camp? You did it. At this time, the sexy female teacher holding an evil leather whip did not continue to entangle the dead-handled wooden crane that had run away, but pointed to the ground in front of her and asked. Huh. Kasumi followed his finger and saw that the other party was talking about the area where the megavolts had just been activated. Well, I did it, and I released all the power. Quote. In fact, it is no wonder that Midnight would notice there, After all, it has been scorched black by the high temperature current, and there is really nothing left except for dozens of steel balls doped in it. Yes, not a single slightly larger small stone. 4.7 Shangming, you're strong. The coquettish midnight teacher habitually licked her pink lips and said meaningfully. I know. Quote. Shangming nodded without modesty, joking, what is there to be embarrassed to admit about the strength he has cultivated step by step? Hey. Hearing Shangming's answer, he was stunned for a moment at midnight, and then couldn't help laughing, but in the end, the smile disappeared and he told seriously. It's good to be strong, but you must remember to use it carefully, otherwise it is easy to make serious mistakes. I see. Quote. Shangming didn't say anything, and what they said was right, but the other party's next sentence made him scratch his head. What's the situation? What's your phone number, can you tell me? Huh. P.S. Thanks for the 1000 tip of. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collection and recommendation. Chapter 69. In a dark space somewhere in Japan, the glow of dozens of monitors flickered white. Poof. Quote. Poof. Quote. After 2 sounds of falling water, 2 foul-smelling masses of sewage appeared on the ground and 2 figures lying on them. I didn't expect it. This personality that has just started will be used on you first. Quote. A tall black figure sitting in front of the screen slowly turned around with the automatic swivel chair and turned his back to the display group, and said hoarsely. Then he glanced at the charred blackness on the wooden hanging of the dead handle. Is he burned? Quote. It's not. Quote. At this time, a man in a white coat who looked like an evil scientist quietly walked out of a dark corner, and then, without shying away from the stench, briefly looked at the injuries of the dead-handled wooden hanger, shook his head and denied it. This is not the case with the burns of the flames, it should have been caused by electric shock, but fortunately, the combat suit on the body has offset a lot of damage, and it should not be able to die. Quote. Electric shock. The tall black shadow thought for a moment, but finally shook his head and said, I don't remember the heroes of the thunder and lightning system who existed in the male 30 Ying. Quote. Then he looked at the black mist, although it seemed a little weak, but it was not a big deal. After all, 90% of the body is composed of energy, and this alone is indeed a very good ability. Let's talk about it. Quote. Yes. Quote. Black Mist glanced at the dead-handled wooden crane that had been taken away by the doctor, and then bowed his head respectfully to recount what had happened in Shangying. On the other side, Shangying sighed. For the abrupt request at midnight, Shangming finally agreed to call the other party, and then go for a morning run together from time to time. Seriously, his heart actually refused. Because when he goes to Omiya Park, he doesn't just go for a morning jog to exercise, but he studies personality in private, which is really hard to say to outsiders. But at midnight, she was very interested, saying that her time was also very limited, and she didn't necessarily go every day, and she only ran for half an hour at most, that is, at about 5:30, and she needed to go back. Everyone said so, and Shangming would be a little too ignorant of current affairs if he refused, no matter how he said that the other party was his own teacher. 15 minutes later, a large number of police cars surrounded the area, followed by reporters who followed like sharks smelling blood, but the matter was too serious today. Therefore, the police mercilessly raised the cordon and refused all their requests. Even the police solemnly warned reporters that it is best not to try to sneak in, otherwise they will be treated as enemies if they are discovered. This is no joke. But the reporters were unexpectedly obedient today, and even showed excited expressions on their faces. Shangying High School is actually enemy. It is still in the students' curriculum. With such a big news, they can already see that tomorrow they will have a big increase in sales across the country, and they who are lucky enough to be in charge of this report will at least receive a lot of bonuses. Therefore, they were not in a hurry at all, holding all kinds of long guns and short cannons and quietly staring at the gate of the USJ with expectant faces, and there was only one voice in everyone's hearts. Come out, hero. As long as you ask a few words and take a few photos, then this news is in hand, and the next step is to fight the speed of each company. What the? Don't need to ask the ins and outs of the matter. Yes, of course it does. But that was for later, and now it is imperative to get the first-hand news out before the rest of the newspapers. As for the content, isn't there a photo and general information? Just fool around and it's okay. After figuring out the details, you can slowly supplement and publish. This kind of thing is completely basic. As for the inside of the USJ, the teacher on the Shangying side cooperated with the police, and after completely cleaning up all the enemy alliance minions, they began to escort out, and dozens of escort cars had already been prepared outside. It's out, it's out, it's out. The reporters showed a very high level of professionalism at this moment, and when the enemy at the forefront first appeared, they turned on the flash without even looking at the camera. For a while, the gate of USJ was shrouded in flashes and crackling sounds, which made some newcomers who had just joined the police force subconsciously squint their eyes, and even covered their eyes with their hands, which seemed very uncomfortable for this situation. Xiangying's teacher and A's students walked out of another gate. Well, here the reporters can't get by, and the comparison has been blocked. 16, 17, 18, 19. The Naomasa Wanai Police Department, which is in charge of all cases related to the enemy alliance in the Shizuoka Prefecture area, carefully counted the number of students present. It seems that except for the accident of Izuku Midoriya, who was seriously injured in both feet, the others are basically fine. This situation made him and Officer Tamagawa Sancha, who looked like a cat-headed man on the side, breathe a sigh of relief. If there were really casualties this time, even if only one student died, then they would not dare to imagine that they would face pressure. In that case, let's let the students go back to the teacher first, and don't just ask what happened right now. Quote. After all, the children should have been frightened as well, Officer Kanuki said to his subordinates. Officer Tamagawa nodded, then looked at the students and sighed. Xiangying almost made a big mistake this time. Then Ishido-sana, Waobuki and other girls asked about the situation of Aizawa and teacher number 13, and when they knew that they were only seriously injured and nothing serious would happen, everyone exhaled a sigh of depression. These two teachers really worked hard to protect them this time, so Xiangming and the others also agreed with them from the bottom of their hearts. Just as the students were queuing up to get on the bus, they saw Principal Nezu walk out with two teachers, Midnight and Sniper, and the police department immediately walked over and said, 257 inches headmaster, I'd like to be able to explore every corner of the school just in case. Quote. Well, of course. For this somewhat reckless request, the principal agreed, although some teachers may have opinions, after all, the police have higher authority. Quote. And search is your policeman's area of expertise, so please leave it to you. This made the police department very satisfied with Xiangying's cooperation, nodded kindly, and then ordered Officer Tamagawa behind him. Arrange for each class to search the school immediately. Later, when Xiangming and the others re-arrived at Xiangying University, the orange-red sunset was still showing its last afterglow of the day, so the entire sky overhead looked particularly beautiful. But the mood of everyone present was not like this, and when they thought that they and others had just experienced the test of life and death, their hearts were very eager to go home. Perhaps only home and family can give this group of teenagers and girls an average age of only 15 years old the greatest psychological comfort. Therefore, Xiangming did not go to the 8 million house today, and the 8 million classmates were not in the mood to teach, and Tai Jie also asked for a leave of absence from the judo gym. As for whether he told the teacher about it, I don't know. When he dragged his tired body and walked into the entrance of his house, he was hugged by his mother who ran from the living room, while his father followed behind him and looked at his son with palpitations. Woo, son, are you all right? Is there anything hurt? Show it to your mother. To see the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Feilu novel. Chapter 70. Xiangming looked at his mother, who was full of tears on her face, holding herself and looking at her body worriedly, and said with some distress. You already know. Well, Xiangying called an hour ago. Dad sighed and looked at Mom's back. Your mother was so frightened that she was even going to book a plane ticket to fly over just now. Quote. At this time, the mother suddenly raised her head and said expectantly, Son, let's not be any heroes, how about singing and painting? Quote. Quote. Xiangming was silent. He could understand his mother's feelings, but he didn't want to give up Xiangying just like that. It's not that he's very eager to be a hero, but he's all here, and at least he has to get his license. And he seems to like the feeling of fighting. I know. Never mind. Quote. But at this time, Xiangming's mother shook her head and muttered to herself, it's better to come as you wish. Quote. Then he solemnly looked at Xiangming's eyes and said, but you have to promise me that nothing will happen. You have to understand that your life is not just yours. Okay. At the end, there was a begging look in her eyes, which made Xiangming unable to hold back tears anymore and hugged her mother tightly. I promise to stay safe, I promise. Okay, let's go back to the living room to calm down first, and then let my son go back to the room to rest after dinner, and I'll talk about it tomorrow if there is anything. Father Shangming resisted the impulse in his heart and said in a trembling voice. He is the head of the family, and he must remain calm at this time, otherwise the family will be excited, and something big will happen. In the evening, Shangying called again, saying that the A-1 class of the hero department would have a day off tomorrow and start normal classes the day after tomorrow. This notice has reduced some of the dissatisfaction that parents have with Shangying a lot, at least it means that Shangying still understands their feelings. Coupled with Shangying's reputation for so many years, they can only sigh, let this matter pass like this, at least nothing happened to the child. The next day, Shangming didn't go for a morning run, let alone study, and Shangming's father didn't go to work, so the family of three stayed at home, tasting all kinds of side dishes made by his mother while watching TV. But the TV has been swiped by the news of various Shangying being attacked, and even a few small shots have appeared in Shangming. This made him very curious about how those reporters filmed himself and others. The situation of other students is similar, most of the parents are very tacit, choose to soothe the child's fright with warm family affection. Well, the effect is really good. In just one day, they have already begun to talk and laugh about yesterday's events. On the third day, Kamime and Tetsu met again, and then took the Shinkansen to Shangying together, and as soon as they walked into the classroom, they saw that Leary, Midoriya, Banghao, Erlang, and Chong Dark had arrived. Well, it just so happens to be people who live nearby. Shangming, Tai J. Good morning, everyone. Shangming smiled and said hello as he walked to his place, and then after hanging up his school bag, he leaned into Midorigu's ear and whispered, I forgot everything you saw yesterday. Huh, what? The Green Valley boy was stunned for a moment, and then immediately came to his mind Ming's strange expression and movements at that time. He smiled awkwardly, don't worry, I'm not going to say it. Quote. Well, I hope so, I guess you don't want to experience yesterday's trick, million volts. Shangming patted the other party's shoulder with satisfaction and smiled. Of course, of course. When the young man of Midoriya heard this, he nodded again and again in some panic. He was standing at the closest distance yesterday, so he knew very well the terrifying power of the lightning chain, million volts. Later, as time went by, they kept approaching one after another as classmates, and it was naturally indispensable to shush each other, but soon it was time to chat, and after all the chats were over, everyone consciously quieted down. Because it's time for class. But there is a question in everyone's hearts, that is, who is the class guide in charge of today's first class? After all, the class guide Aizawa has been hospitalized. But when the teacher's door was opened and a mummified figure walked in, everyone was shocked. Good morning, Aizawa Bandao. That's recovering too fast, isn't it? I think it's a matter of being too dedicated. Quote. At this time, after the Iida squad leader raised it, he asked loudly, Class guide, are you okay already? Can you call it okay like that? Leary, who was sitting behind the squad leader, complained in fright. On the other side, class leader Aizawa had already stepped onto the podium step by step and said very calmly. It doesn't matter if I'm safe or not, the battle isn't over yet. Quote. This sentence directly attracted everyone's attention, especially the timid Minoru Minda, who instantly changed his face, wondering in fear if there was another enemy attacking. It's the Shangying Sports Festival, and it's almost here. Quote. In an instant, the originally suppressed atmosphere was swept away, and all the students became excited. Even Shangming was no exception. He had lived in this world for more than 10 years, and naturally knew the weight of the Shangying Sports Festival. Finally, Kirishima stood up excitedly, slapped the table and shouted, Super Campus-style event. At this time, Erlang objected, Class guide, we have just been invaded by the enemy, is it really appropriate to hold a sports festival at this time? Yes, what if we are attacked again? Said Ojiro-san, cautiously. Then it's all slaughtered, said Banghao with his fists colliding into each other and with a fierce expression. It's the opposite. Quote. Aizawa raised his right arm, which was in a plaster cast, and explained calmly while enduring the pain all over his body. It seems that the school is planning to use this sports festival to show the outside world how impregnable Shangying's crisis management system is. Quote. I heard that the security force has also been strengthened 5 times that of previous years. Quote. Then he raised his head slightly, trying to open his dull aching eyes and looked at the students below. The most important thing is that Xiangying's sports festival can be said to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. How can it be stopped because of just a few enemies? Quote. In addition, our school's sports festival is one of the largest events in Japan today, and the things involved in it are no longer something that the school can decide alone. Quote. Then Aizawa talked a little bit about some common-sense concepts about the Xiangying Sports Festival. Well, it's just a simple procedure, and after the lecture, the lesson is almost over. However, it wasn't until he left the classroom that the excitement of Kirishima and Banghao hadn't passed. The beginning of April. There's only a month left to prepare. Thinking of this, Shengming discussed with Tai Jie to see if they could discuss it together, but Tai Jie scratched his head embarrassedly and said, I may not have time in the afternoon, because Mr. Daimon has recently started to formally teach me judo. Quote. Then he added, but it should be okay in the morning. Faint. Shengming thought about it, but still shook his head and rejected the proposal, saying, you still have to sleep more in the morning, you practice until the evening, you must ensure sufficient sleep time and quality. Quote. Then you. Tai Jie looked at Shengming. What's this? Before I met you, I had been cultivating alone. Quote. After speaking, Shengming looked at his right hand and said leisurely. And, that trick. It's almost done. P.S. Can you guess which trick? Underscore. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collection and recommendation. Chapter 71. In the days that followed, Shengming's life returned to normal again. Wake up early in the morning, habitually take the subway to Omiya Park for a morning run, and occasionally with the midnight teacher, but as she said, this teacher did not make him feel any difficulties at all. It's really what he says, until 5:30, and when the time is up, he doesn't need to say anything, so he will say hello and leave. This made Shengming have a good impression of this teacher. And in the process of running in the morning, he also learned a lot of details about the hero law from this sexy and beautiful teacher, as well as the experience of how to deal with all kinds of emergencies without using personality as much as possible. Don't underestimate these things. Shengming knows very well that this knowledge and experience will play a great role in critical times. At the same time, with the efforts of Xiangying and the police, the craze about the attack on Xiangying gradually began to be pushed to the beach by other news, and then disappeared from people's sight in a legitimate light. Of course, if some people deliberately think about it, they will also think about it again. After all, when the previous wave dies on the beach, it will also leave a wet mark, but such a small number of people can no longer make any difference. In the final analysis, it is because there are no teachers and students who died in this incident, otherwise the situation would be very different from now. Among them, in the Japanese music circle, the new craze to succeed the Xiangying attack is the Target Pokemon Master, released by the Pikachu band of Kamime. Well, it's not because of how earth-shattering the song is, but because of the sheer popularity of the sheer propaganda campaign. Think about it, who are the 2 major partners of the Naruto company? Mitsui, Million. These 2 top Japanese giants. Don't look at the fact that none of the main areas are concentrated in the entertainment industry, but with the huge capital energy like cheating, it can be said that if you want to make a song popular, it can be said that you can catch it. Not to mention the strong team. Therefore, during this period of time, almost all large and medium-sized websites on the internet in Japan were overwhelmingly printed with various photos of Shengming, Erlang, and 8 million people, as well as the most important song titles. And it's also in the name of Pikachu's exclusive anime, Pokemon, theme song. Well, it's quite smart, so that even the upcoming Pokemon will be promoted. Netizens watched the posters with Pikachu and Kamito as the C position, surrounded by various elves, and listened to the song, The Target is Pokemon Master, and began to be interested in the anime, Pokemon. In addition, Daddy Shengming was very clever in releasing some pictures and synopsis of new Pokemon on the company's official website in advance, which can be regarded as adding new fuel to this craze. So, Shengming is on fire, Erlang is on fire, 8 million is on fire. It's not a small fire, it's a real fire, especially in the center of Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, and their posters can be seen everywhere, such as the subway station with the most traffic. Obviously, this is Mitsui and 8 million who want to hold them to death, and also, with their size, if they don't do it, they won't do it, but once they decide to do it, it will definitely not be a small fight. In particular, Akihabara, Japan's 2-dimensional Holy Land, was the core area of the propaganda department's onslaught. Obviously, there are still a few days before the broadcast of the anime, but the street here is already filled with Pokemon puppets, not to mention, with the cute image of Pokemon, it really attracts a lot of people to play. Well, although there are only 4 kinds of puppets in it, that is, the 4 original elves of Little Fire Dragon, Jenny Turtle, Wonderful Frog Seed, and Pikachu, but compared to the number of the first 3, the number of Mo puppets is much less. One in every machine. Look, the Japanese also play routines. At the same time, there are animated posters everywhere inside and outside the building, and the song, Target is Pokemon Master, is played on a loop, and some of the people who come here often after a few days can even hum some of them themselves. It's just a matter of waiting for the official broadcast day. That is, 2 days later, it happened to be Saturday, and Shangming's father and Mitsui decided to start with a Saturday and 2 episodes on Sunday, and then return to the speed of 1 episode a week on Saturday. At noon that day, Shangming did not go to the cafeteria hall to eat as usual, but followed Shangshang to her home, well, to meet someone. Hello auntie. As soon as Shangshang walked into the house, Shangming saw her mother, a purple-haired beauty with a very literary and artistic young temperament, and her earlobes were exactly the same as those of her daughter, they were all long jacks, and then he said hello very politely. Irish she. Welcome. Erlang's mother pushed down the glasses on the bridge of her nose and smiled. You are my daughter's band leader, Shangming Electric, right? My little princess often talks about you. Quote. These words made Shangming subconsciously glance at Erlang beside him. Mom. Shangshang's ears instantly turned red, and he said angrily, don't talk nonsense. I have to say that a little girl is a little girl, and in front of her mother, she will become different from when she is outside, well. A little more squeamish. Okay, come in, Kazama is already upstairs. Quote. Zero begging for flowers oh. Erlang's mother said meaningfully as she led them into the house, and she didn't know who she was saying this to. He's already here. As soon as Erlang heard this name, he instantly returned to his usual appearance, raised his eyebrows and asked, then why didn't he come down? Hey. Quote. Erlang's mother pursed her lips and smiled, looked at Shangming who didn't know why, and said, isn't he about to face the first and probably the most important interview in his life? So I'm playing the piano in your room to vent my stress. Play the piano to relieve pressure. The corners of Shangming's mouth curled, secretly interesting, and then followed Erlang to the 2nd floor. As for the aunt, she said that she was preparing some simple refreshments for them. Sure enough, I'm playing the piano. As soon as the 2 of them walked outside Erlang's room, they faintly heard the sound of an electronic piano coming from it, and the tune was, the target is Pokemon Master. ... 0. I don't know if it's unintentional or deliberate, if it's intentional, then this guy has a bit of a brain. Shangming thought, and then motioned for Erlang to open the door. Squeak. The moment the door opened, Shangming's face changed a little, don't get me wrong, not because of how well it played, but because of. It's too loud. Come on in. Then Erlang took his arm and walked in quickly, and then quickly closed the door again. It's not good to learn this Kazama. You have to learn my bad habit, I like to turn up the volume to the maximum. Erlang complained unhappily as he looked at the blue-haired boy who was playing the piano without himself. Quote. Shangming was speechless, and then helplessly leaned into Erlang's ear and asked, do you want to remind him? This. Not so good. Erlang reluctantly leaned into Shangming's ear, exhaled hot breath and said, he is a very gentle person, and even a little too kind, but once he gets angry, then. Really going to be very angry. But fortunately, this song should have been played for a while, so the 2 of them just finished chatting and the sound of the piano gradually stopped. When the blue-haired boy finished playing the last note and lowered his hands from the black and white keys, he just looked up and saw Kamina and Erlang with a somewhat intimate demeanor. But this boy, who was wearing a full-length black school uniform, with blue hair and pupils, saw only Erlang at this moment. Hibiki. Chapter 72. Erlang smiled at his enthusiasm, and then when he came to him, he raised his hand to introduce the 2 parties. Shangming, he is the keyboard player I recommended to you, the Wind and Clouds, and now he is a year student in the Hero Department of Shiji University. Quote. And then this is. Shangming waved his hand, then stretched out his right hand and said with a smile, Shangming Electric, a first-year student of the Hero Department of Shangying University, hello. Well, hello. Quote. Looking down at the outstretched hand, Kazama pursed his lips very quietly, and then shook his hand gently, giving a suave feeling. At this time, he did look very different from before, especially when Shang Ming noticed that when he greeted Erlang just now, there was a very obvious excitement in his eyes. But now in the face of him, it has become very bland, well. At most, some appreciation and curiosity. Now that we've introduced ourselves, let's get straight to the point. I guess you need to rush back too, right? Shang Ming walked past him and walked to the side of the electronic 380 piano, and said softly while looking at Erlang's room. Quote. Kazama nodded and said, "You've heard about my piano skills just now, and I really appreciate the songs you write, so I'd love to be a part of the Pikachu band." Quote. Shang Ming didn't say anything about it, but asked something that wasn't very related to the band. "I heard that you have no interest in becoming a professional hero, but why did you apply for the hero department before? And then you were admitted to Shiji's hero department after losing the election." Kazama frowned, glanced at the silent Erlang, and finally shifted his gaze back to Kamime. "I really don't have any interest in heroes, it's just that she wants to be a hero, and I just took the exam with me. For me, whether it's a general subject or a hero subject, it doesn't matter which one I go to." Quote. At the same time, I added a sentence in my heart. The most important thing is that this way you can have a second common topic with Erlang. It's a pity that I didn't get into Shangying. It doesn't matter. Shang Ming sighed and said, "It seems that this is the reason why you didn't get into Shangying, and your grades in Shiji are not good now." Quote. You didn't even think about strengthening your personality abilities, and you weren't even interested in hero licenses, did you? Kazama was a little upset and replied with a blank face. "My dream is to become a well-known musician, and instead of wasting time on personality, I might as well listen to more songs and play more tunes." Quote. Then he asked rhetorically, "Does this have anything to do with joining the band?" "Of course it does." Quote. Shang Ming nodded as a matter of course and said, "Because this Pikachu band is not an ordinary band in my plan." Quote. What? Kazama was stunned by this, and didn't understand what he meant by this. What did it mean that it wasn't an ordinary band? "Don't you get it yet, stupid?" At this time, Erlang reluctantly interjected, "Look at Shangming, who are the 8 million? You're not all heroes." Kazama's blue eyes widened slightly, and then he suddenly looked at Kamina, who was smiling, and said incredulously, "You want to form a band where all members are heroes?" It's still a bit inappropriate. Quote. Shangming shook his head and calmly corrected. "I'm not only going to be the top superstar, but also the world's top Thunderbolt personality, and as my teammate, of course, too." "You're crazy." Kazama couldn't keep calm anymore, and looked at Kamime in amazement, and then looked at Erlang again. "You're going to go crazy with him too?" Erlang looked at Kamina, and then silently answered, which made Kazama speechless for a moment. "Got it." Quote. Kamina slowly walked up to Kazama and said seriously, "If you don't have the heart to become stronger and work hard for it, then you are not qualified to become a member of the Pikachu band." Quote. Quote. Kazama fell silent. Seeing him like this, Kamina sighed in his heart, and then whispered to Erlang, "I'm sorry, let's go." Quote. Quote. Erlang looked at Kazama, and there was some hatred in his eyes. He had always been like this since he was a child, and he was not interested in anything other than playing music with him. This also leads to nothing worth saying except for the special feature of the electronic organ. But I have to admit that my little friend is really good to herself, and she is also very gentle and kind. To be honest, she really hopes that Kazama can join the band. Because she thinks that if Kazama can become a member of the band and really work towards those two goals as Kamina said, it will definitely become more motivated, right? But now, wait a minute. Quote. Just as Kamina and Uro were about to leave the room side by side, Kazama's voice came from behind him, and it sounded like a little trembling, but it wasn't very obvious. Shangming turned to look at him, but instead of looking at Shangming, he looked at Erlang, and after a while, asked again, "Are you sure you want to follow him crazy?" Erlang still didn't say anything, just nodded firmly. "0. Okay." Quote. Kazama smiled helplessly, then turned his head to look at Naruto. "How can I prove to you that I have the heart to become stronger and work hard for it?" "Oh, are you sure you can change your mood so quickly?" asked Kamina suspiciously. Quote. Kazama secretly said in his heart, "My mood has never changed, everything is for the sake of Erlang. I want to promise with my mouth that you shouldn't agree, so give a condition." Shangming looked at his eyes, as if he really wanted to come for real, so he put away his questioning expression and began to think in his head, and after a while, the corners of his mouth curled. There it is. Then he said to Kazama, well, you should know about the temporary hero license exam for the National High School Hero Department, right? Of course, you mean. Kazama somewhat understood what Kasuma meant. That's right, just like you think, as long as you get the temporary hero license, then I will officially invite you to join us as a keyboardist as the captain of the Pikachu band. Well, are you willing to make this agreement with me? Shangming said handsomely with one hand in his trouser pocket. Good. Kazama Yundong agreed. Since it has been decided, then there is nothing to hesitate. Although he has a gentle personality, there is no problem with hesitation. When the time comes, I'll wait for you to invite me personally. At the same time, his eyes were focused on Erlang again, and he secretly said in his heart, no matter what, I have to be by your side. Since I gave up my academic performance for you and focused all my energy on music and musical instruments, then now I can still do everything for you. 1.1 to become stronger, and what proof do you get? But Erlang didn't know what was going on in his mind, and she didn't feel anything about his gaze, because she had become completely accustomed to it over the years, and she just thought it was Kazama's personal trait. But I'm still happy in my heart for Kazama's decision. At this time, Shangming asked with interest, by the way, I don't know what your personality is. Quote. It's the engine system. Quote. Kazama stroked the blue bangs that drooped to his eyes, and said casually disappreciatively. Flowing cloud. After speaking, he subconsciously looked up at the ceiling, then raised his arms and opened his palms, and the next second milky white gas began to gather on his palms. It seems that the weather is good, and there should be no rain recently. Chapter 73. Can you get out of the clouds? Kamime pondered the scientific name, Luyun, for a while, and then saw the phenomenon on Kazama's hands, and probably understood what kind of ability it was. Yes, I can summon clouds. Quote. Kazama nodded and smiled, then added, but the sky above must have clouds. Quote. 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 Shangming thought for a moment, and finally asked with some hesitation, then what's the use of this sex? In fact, what he wanted to ask was how this sex should be used in battle. Quote. Quote. Kazama was also silent, looking down at the clouds floating in his palm, and finally pursed his lips and whispered, I don't know, I didn't pay attention to my personality before. Quote. At this time, Shangming had a little headache, and asked helplessly, then how do you want to become stronger? Not to mention him, even the Erlang beside him was trying to think about how to fight with a cloud with no attack power at this time, but after thinking about it for a long time, it seemed that he really couldn't think of anything other than what Shangming just said to block his vision. Don't worry, there's always a way. Quote. Kazama smiled gently, as if he didn't care about the serious question at all, but don't worry, I'll definitely get stronger and get that temporary license. Quote. We've agreed. After speaking, he looked at Erlang again, I will teach you more personality things in the future, Shangyingsheng. Good. But I don't know much. Erlang replied with some embarrassment. Big husband. Quote. Kazama thought to himself, I don't need any advice from you, as long as you're by my side. 01. Well, then you can do these things yourself. Quote. Since everyone has said so, Shangming has nothing to say, but he still habitually studies the ability of Luyun in his heart, and he recalls the anime he watched in his previous life, whether there is anyone with similar ability. Then, with this interesting topic in mind, the three of them walked to the kitchen on the first floor, enjoyed the refreshments prepared by Erlang's mother, and then thanked them before parting at the door. Well, Shangming and Erlang are naturally together. Erlang, since you want me to be stronger, then I'll show you how strong I am. Kazama let the warm wind blow through the blue hair, silently looked at the back of Erlang who walked beside Shangming, and then looked at Shangming again. I don't know why, I always feel that Erlang's attitude towards Shangming is a little strange. Well, it's just a little shyer, which is not the same as when she was with herself. But he didn't think much of it, he just thought it was a restraint in front of the captain. Alright, it's time to go back. Quote. Kazama raised his head and looked at the vast blue sky and a few fluttering clouds with his clear blue eyes, and then turned away decisively. The other side. Shangming, can you think of the usage of cloud? Erlang asked with some distress. This good girl really wants to help her friend at this time. Kamime is actually studying this, not for Kazama, but he likes to ponder all kinds of personality abilities. But I really thought of a person, although his ability is not cloud, but it seems to be almost the same. They are all the kind that seem to be weak in attack. I'm thinking, is it possible to increase Kazama's speed and power by spraying? Squirting. Erlang was stunned for a moment. Then I only listened to Shengming and continued, if it doesn't work, go and practice assassination, and cooperate with the effect of clouds blocking the line of sight, and engage in a silent killing. Hearing this, a black line was pulled down on Erlang's head. Kamina, Kazama, he's going to be a hero. Silent killing or something, it sounds like the enemy's tricks. Shengming doesn't agree with this. Personality and tricks are still tools, in essence, and tools are good and bad, and those who use tools are good and bad. Then you can change the name, for example. Erlang tilted his little head and thought about it. On the song, sighing helplessly, he said, we really don't know much about Kazama's personality, and he didn't say anything about more specific abilities, just a summoning cloud can't think of anything. Quote. Seriously, he now seriously doubts that Kazama can get stronger, and even if he can get stronger, how strong can he be? Then the two of them returned to Shangying to continue the class, and this afternoon's combat training class was still in charge of Olmec, and the project was the same as before, still playing heroes and enemies. It's just a slight change in the environment and the rules of victory and defeat. Well, in general, it's a pleasure to use personality, but they can't do that on the outside. After school, Kamime did not leave in the luxury car of the 8 million family as usual, but walked to the Shizuoka subway station with Tetsutsu and everything. Because yesterday after the tutorial of 8 million classmates told him that there was a family reunion today. Shengming agreed very understandingly, the other party was obliged to help, and people had to be busy with their own affairs, right? However, as soon as they walked out of the underground station in Saitama City, they noticed a group of people gathered around a large tree on the side of the street, and the cry of children could be faintly heard from inside, and they were full of anxiety. Shengming and Taijie glanced at each other, thinking that someone was bullying the child, and then walked over quickly in tacit understanding. But as soon as they approached, they heard someone say that there was a cat in the tree, and there was a short, fat middle-aged man in the crowd, who looked up at the tree helplessly while calmly coaxing the little boy. Natsu-chan. Woo-woo, Natsu-chan is gone. Woo-woo, I want shaw sauce. The little boy clutched his father's thigh with tears on his face and cried continuously. Huh. Quote. But this father didn't recruit either, and at the same time regretted agreeing to his son's request and handing over the leash to the other party to hold, otherwise he wouldn't have let the cat run to the tree. What, it's a cat. Quote. Taijie pursed his lips in amusement, he thought he would meet a few gangsters who bullied children. Well, but the tree is a bit tall. Quote. Kamime looked at the height of the tree and realized that unless he ran up at high speed, he wanted to help the little boy retrieve the cat. But the point is that they have stepped out of the realm of Shangying, and according to the law, they cannot use their individuality. This is another trivial matter, and it is not worth his big trouble. Hey, it's a silver tabby, it's chubby, it's good. Just as a group of people were helpless listening to the boy's cry, a tall and thin boy straddled a bicycle happened to pass by, looked up at the cat in the tree, and very knowingly saw the type of cat at a glance. Then he got out of the bike, slowly walked into the crowd, and asked the father, if you call it by name, will it answer? Huh. The boy's father didn't understand what he was asking for, but he scratched himself and replied, a few times in a while. Quote. It's him. Kamito on the side recognized the person at a glance, it was the seaweed-headed boy he met in the shopping street before. Well, what's its name? The purple-haired boy asked. Natsu-chan. At this time, the little boy stopped crying, because he saw hope in this big brother. Can you help me get Shajong back? I'll try. Quote. The boy smiled lightly, and then instructed them, after I call it later, you can call it together until it answers, you know. The boy's father and the boy looked at each other strangely, but nodded that they would cooperate, at least a hope, right? Natsu-chan. Look here. Meow. The next second, I saw the boy in public, barking at the kitten on the tree with a serious face, and even learned a few cat meows without being shy, and it sounded like 710 to be like that. Meow meow meow. But a strange thing happened. Before the boy and his father called, the cat actually responded by itself. Seeing this situation, the corner of the boy's mouth showed a smile, and secretly said, good cat. Natsu-chan, now go down from above. Soon, something that surprised the surrounding melon-eating ministers even more happened. The black and white fat cat, really obediently pulled the leash around his neck and slowly climbed down from the tree. Well done. Quote. The boy walked over and lowered himself into his arms, and then skillfully began to pick up the cat, but finally gave it to the little boy with a longing face. However, in order to prevent him from running again, he first handed the rope to the boy's father. Is this his personality? Shangming looked at the back of the boy who was about to go back to ride, and said secretly, call the other party, if the other party answers, then it will be controlled. Then he immediately stepped forward and asked, hello, can you get acquainted? You should also be Shangsheng, right? Huh. The boy squinted at the dead fish and leaned on the bicycle and turned around to look at Shangming. It's two. So you're also a hero. I'm Shangming Electric in Class A of the hero section, what about you? Tai Jie, who was beside Shangming, looked at them with a puzzled expression. It was the first time he had seen Shangming take the initiative to talk to someone. Hero sections. Mind-blowing people, general subject Class C. Quote. Xin Sao looked at Shangming, and then replied casually, but without waiting for Shangming to say the next sentence, he rode directly on the bicycle and waved his hand. Sorry, I'm going to work in the car shop now, next time. After saying that, I rode away directly. Quote. Quote. Shangming looked at the back of Xin Sao speechlessly. Is he really in such a hurry? Well, since you live in Saitama and you're also from Shangying, there must be a chance. I'm interested in your personality. Chapter 74. Today is Saturday, the day when Pokémon, in which Namira is the main character, officially premieres on TV Tokyo. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, due to special treatment, the hero section, which needs to go to the 6th class, has officially ended all classes. Well, school is over. Just as A's classmates stood up and started to clean up their desks after Aizawa's class guide left, Kamiyuki smiled handsomely and invited everyone to take an hour out tonight to watch the upcoming Pokémon. A must-see. Quote. Although I'll only appear tomorrow. Erlang on the side, 8 million, also said to Leary, Frog Blow and a few other good sisters with a serious face. Hehe, I already knew. The lively and cheerful Ishido-sana raised his fist and smiled with interest. Now the subway is full of your posters. Yes, I'm almost memorizing the date and time on it. Wow, Blow said with a cute nod of her lips. However, I really look forward to seeing my classmates in another world. Kirishima looked at Kamime, his eyes full of envy. That, Erlang and 8 million can be drawn into the animation, I wonder if we can. Well, this is Minoru Minda, but from his obscene expression, you can probably guess what he's thinking. It's nothing more than the plot of interacting with cute girls in the anime, right? If that's the case, then with my shining charm, I might overtake Kamime to become the main character. Aoyama gracefully stroked his face and began to narcissus again. Cut, boring. Bang Hao walked out with his bag on his back with an unhappy face, and at the same time said loudly, I still have to train. I will definitely not watch it. Absolutely. He. Quote. Shangming was not angry, because after these days of getting along, he also understood the other party's personality a little. Although this kid's expression and words sound very confused, unexpectedly, he never acts more aggressively, let alone bullies people out of his mind. Well, it's just that when I was a teenager in Midoriya, my attitude was a little more intense, and I don't know why, aren't they from the same country? But what Minoru Mineta said just now, it made him a little interested. If you can draw more students into Pokémon, it will definitely be very interesting. Anyway, there are a lot of characters needed behind this anime. Shangming and 8 million glanced at each other, nodded tacitly, and then Shangming smiled. So, if you're interested in playing in the Pokémon world, come to me now and write down your name and address, and I'll ask the company to send the model release contract to your respective homes. Quote. As soon as these words came out, some people's eyes lit up instantly. You really can. Minoru Mineta shouted excitedly, he has a world to play with the pretty little ladies. I want. The pink Ishido-san also jumped up happily, and then suddenly took Leary's hand beside him and shouted, I want it with Mikako. Huh. As soon as Leary thought that he was going to be seen by the whole country, he panicked a little. Will this cause you trouble? But that being said, the glint of expectation in her cute little eyes really couldn't hide it. With my charming character, it will definitely add a lot of popularity to the anime. Needless to say, it's Aoyama that is elegant. Paint me as the hardest man. Kirishima said loudly with his hands hardened. Tai Jie quit, and his temper was also rough. He was also steely, and then touched Kirishima with his iron fist, and said provocatively, "I will make you completely understand in this sports festival that the hardest person in A is Lord Ben. If you can do it, give it a try." Kirishima replied. Immediately after that, the fiery eyes of the two collided together, and sparks of blood faintly burst out in the air. As they walked up to Kamina and wrote down their names and addresses, the boys such as Tsuneki and Shoji stood silently, but they didn't leave the classroom. 10 minutes later, Kamime looked at the paper with his name and address written on it, and smiled with satisfaction. Except for Bang Hao, who left early, Bang Jiao frozen, Ida's squad leader who was running alone in the playground outside, and Midoriya who didn't know where he went, almost all the Class A students were included. Then everyone walked out of the classroom together, ready to go back to their homes. Kamina, on the other hand, did not go with 8 million or go home with Tetsujay, but went to the principal's office alone. Because the class guide Aizawa informed him that the principal was looking for him during the lunch break, he went to the principal's office after school, but the class guide didn't tell him what the specific thing was, and maybe he didn't know. As for the 8 million aspect, it was because of the Shangying experience. She needed to speed up the absorption of knowledge, so the small class between the two was naturally suspended. But this is also in line with Shang Ming's intention. After all, he also needs time to practice, and that move can be called a nirvana. 7 o'clock in the evening. Shang Ming's family of 3 happily gathered in the living room, tasting the pineapple cut by his mother while waiting for the arrival of 7:30. That's right, the broadcast time of Pokémon has been set at 7:30 every Saturday, which can be said to be the best prime time in Japan. From this point of view, you can see how much energy Mitsui has. Well, now the division of labor between Mitsui and Yamillion is more clear. Mitsui is mainly responsible for the animation production and promotion of Pokémon, while Yamillion is in charge of Pikachu Band. However, because Shangming insisted on asking for a student band, he refused to perform commercially, and the recent Shangying Sports Festival was approaching, and the work of the 8 million family seemed relatively idle. They just need to help maintain popularity on the internet, such as asking some entertainment websites to publish some small news about the Pikachu Band from time to time, or OK people to make some advertisements and send them to major websites or something. Hey, as soon as he thought of the performance, Shangming immediately remembered what the principal had told him. "Dad, the principal came to talk to me after school today." Quote. "What are you talking about?" Shangming's father chewed the sweet and sour pineapple and asked. Shangming's mother was also curious. Shangying's principal was a big man. "He wanted me and Erlang to be in charge of the opening performance of the first-grade hall under the name of Pikachu Band at the sports festival, and the song was required to be in line with Shangying's values." Quote. "What?" Kaminaru's father and mother screamed in unison. What did they just hear? Shangying invited his son to perform the opening performance at the sports festival. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 75. Son, what you're saying is true. Mom asked half incredulously, and at the same time nervously couldn't do it, for fear that a joke would pop out of Shangming's mouth. It's true. Quote. Kamito nodded and confirmed this. In fact, when I first heard this invitation in the principal's office today, I was shocked and overwhelmed. Great. Shangming's mother suddenly rushed over and hugged Shangming, and proudly exclaimed, "You are so amazing." Smack. Well, that's good. Shangming's father also slapped his palm happily. What level of event is the Shangying Sports Festival? It's a megasport that has surpassed the Olympics in the past, and the eyes of all over Japan and even foreigners will be on it. Shangming can sing a song here, and the advertising effect is definitely the best in the world. This Shangying is a big gift for you. Shangming's father was very satisfied with Shangying at this time, even to the point of gratitude, and the dissatisfaction with Shangming who was almost injured by the enemy before disappeared in an instant. But, why did you invite them? I don't think there's been a so-called opening performance since the previous editions, right? After Kaminaru's mother calmed down a little, she realized something strange with the woman's sixth sense. This .710. Shangming, did the principal tell me why? Father and mother looked at their baby son together. Such a big thing, there should always be a leader, right? I didn't go into too much detail, but I probably meant to support our student club band. Kamime also looked puzzled, but the expression of Principal Nezu at that time gave him a very gentle feeling. Didn't you say it? I didn't say it, forget it, probably because Xiangying wanted to have a different sports festival this time. Shangming's father didn't drill this bull's horn, and smiled heartily. At this moment, both he and Shangming automatically ignored the previous decision not to participate in the commercial performance. Just kidding, can ordinary commercial performances be compared to the Xiangying Sports Festival? If they really refused this performance on the grounds of so-called adherence to principles, then they are in a bad brain. And what song are you going to sing? Super Electromagnetic Cannon, or Hero, or Pokemon? Shangming's mother said the popular abbreviations of Shangming's 3 songs in one breath. If the main consideration is the business aspect, it must be the best to sing Pokemon, but Shangming's father hesitated a little. But this doesn't match the Xiangying Sports Festival. Quote. Shangming directly said what his father was worried about, and at the same time he was thinking about this problem, such a big opportunity, it is not okay not to grasp it well. If this had been in a previous life, it would have been sung at the opening of the Olympic Games, and it can be said that no matter what song is sung, it will be listened to by at least tens of millions of people. After a moment, Shangming muttered to himself. Or, sing a new song. New song. Dad was stunned for a moment, then asked worriedly, come. Yes, even if it's time, what if it can be used to write songs, what should I do to prepare for the sports festival? Mom thinks it's important to perform at the opening ceremony, but it's also important to do well at the sports festival. It's definitely too late to write a song, and as for preparation, there's no problem. Quote. Speaking of this, Shangming is more confident. You know, compared to most students, I started preparing a few years ago, and I have less than 3 weeks left, so at most I can only play the role of sharpening my guns. Quote. Shangming's father and mother glanced at each other, although they were still a little worried, but they also knew that their son was indeed much more sensible than other children, so they didn't say anything more. In that case, then you can do it, and my mother and I will silently support you. Okay, there will be no shame. At this moment, a familiar singing voice came from the LCD TV, and it was the premiere time of Pokemon. Hey, here we go. Well, I'm looking forward to it. The Kamina family silently quieted down and quietly watched the protagonist Electric, who interacts with Pikachu and various Pokemon in different scenes accompanied by the melody of the op on the screen. Whether in the fire, in the water, in the grass, or in the forest. Whether it is in the soil, in the clouds, or in the girl's skirt, package. Nakanaka, 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 nakanake, although quite hard. Kanara get, but be sure to get it. Chemo get Pokemon. Pikachu. At this time, the song, the target is Pokemon Master, which was played by Kamina and Erlang, has been transmitted to countless people's homes through countless televisions, and all the previous publicity work has borne abundant fruits at this moment. Mom, come on, come and see. Okay, here we go. Erlang's house. Erlang was very rarely active, greeting his mother who was still washing dishes in the kitchen, while his father was already lying on the sofa and watching, but after listening for a while, he asked a little strangely. Hey, why is it that kid's voice in this song, what about you? Huh. Erlang was stunned for a moment, and then smiled a little embarrassedly. I am in charge of accompaniment, I didn't sing. Why? You're singing so well. Dad was a little unhappy, he thought it was Shangming who deliberately bullied his daughter, otherwise why didn't he let Xiangxiang sing? I didn't tell him he could sing. Erlang smiled awkwardly. Quote. Dad looked helpless. What a fool, Hibiki. At the same time, the Tai J family, the 8 million family, the Leary family and all the A students' homes, the whole family gathered in front of the TV to watch the Electric show. Well, the image of the main character in Pokemon is of course exactly the same as Kamina, but the name is not, only Electric, which is to make it easy for people to remember. So the current situation is that in reality, he is called Shangming, and in the animation, he is called Electric. TV Tokyo, Japan. Section Chief Akiyoshi, who is in charge of animation, film and television, is leading a group of staff members to monitor the ratings of the premiere of Pokemon. In fact, under normal circumstances, this kind of boring work does not need to be handled by a head of his class at all. But who made this an anime where Mitsui and Yamillion said hello? Again, in Japan, the influence of top consortia is no joke, but when the first episode was broadcast for half an hour, there was silence in the monitoring room. 10% for 30 minutes. Is this the energy of the two consortia? Section Chief Akiyoshi muttered to himself in a daze, and after saying that, he immediately turned around and shouted to his subordinates behind him. Go and inform the minister. Explode the wealthy family. Hey, it's rare. Bang Hao's father looked at his son suspiciously. Indeed, you can sit patiently on the couch and watch the animation for 30 minutes, it seems that you really like it. Said her mother, who has a similar hairstyle to Bang Hao, in surprise. At this time, the ending song was already on the TV. Who likes it? When he heard this, he stood up with a face full of shame, and then threw the remote control in his hand onto the sofa. I'm going to sleep. Cut. Boring. Chapter 76. Before you know it, April has quietly turned the page, officially entering the colorful and passionate summer May, and today is the opening day of the Shangying Sports Festival, which has attracted national attention. In order to be able to watch his son's wonderful performance at the scene, Shengming's father had already spent a lot of money to pre-purchase 2 consecutive tickets. Well, I can say that I am quite lucky. Although the Shanghai Sports Venue is the largest full-purpose sports venue in Japan, it can accommodate an exaggerated 120,000 people, but it is still a drop in the bucket compared to the number of people who want to buy tickets. In particular, this time, Shangying University has issued a large number of invitations to the Japanese hero community in the name of the government, resulting in the sports festival will gather 90% of Japan's professional heroes, and the places of these people will naturally be reserved. However, from this point of view, you can feel the self-confidence shown by a large number of Shangying universities, as well as the hard-line attitude shown towards the enemy community. If you have the guts, come. Well, that's probably what it means. As for Shengming, in the previous month, while practicing the Nirvana hard, he rehearsed a new song with Erlang, and as for writing songs, well, how long does it take? For a musical family like the Erlang family, more attention should be paid to the opening performance than the results of the sports festival. Seriously, to be able to perform at the sports festival, the Erlang family was so excited, even Erlang's mother, who had an extremely intellectual personality, was full of amazement at the time. This also made Erlang's parents look at Shengming with admiration, and now it can be said that they are extremely supportive of Erlang and him in the Pikachu band, and promised that they will fully recommend it to their friends in the same industry. Before, they thought it was just a few children's self-amusement, but now they. Ha 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 ha. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Shengming came to the Shangying Sports Venue, alone with a guitar bag on his back, looking at the crowd in front of him in amazement. Is there so many people so early? You must know that the sports festival starts at 8 o'clock, and officially starts at 10 o'clock. But there are already a lot of people gathered here, and a large number of men, women and children wander around the food stalls on both sides, enjoying the excitement of the event with a happy face. And the reason why he came so early was to make the final preparations in advance, and Erlang was the same, thinking that she would either be in there or would be there in a while. Sure enough, when Shengming walked into the spacious work area inside, he saw at a glance that he was adjusting the bass with the music teachers. Yo, good morning. The microphone teacher, who was responsible for directing the opening performance and the whole process of the MC's gift, greeted him as soon as he saw Shengming coming. Mr. Microphone. Good morning, Mr. Microphone. Shengming smiled handsomely at the Erlang who came over, and then saluted the microphone. This teacher has worked a lot for him these days. Okay. The microphone teacher, without too much nonsense, directly carried forward Shangying's consistent and efficient style. Now that you've both arrived, let's practice a few more times while there's still some time, especially the lyrics, understand? Yes, Shengming and Erlang replied in unison, although they had told them countless times, but they didn't have any boredom at all, because their hearts were full at this time. What? Shengming is an adult's mind, how can he still be as nervous as Erlang? Just kidding, how many adults have sung at gram-level events? Soon, under the playing of Shengming and Erlang, there was already prelude music in the work area, I don't know how many times, so although the music was good, the staff did not have any excessive reaction. Well, in the first few days, they were shouting and singing several times a day. Sure enough, that sentence is right, no matter how good it sounds, how much you like the song, after the single song is looped countless times, it will become no longer feeling, and in serious cases, you will even vomit. Interestingly, like the Pikachu map on the guitar, there is also a small picture on the base of the ear. Well, It is a pink-purple elf with 2 large ears. That's right, it's the normal Sonic bunny in Pokémon. Before, Shengming thought that Erlang was very similar to it, so he drew it himself, and then asked someone from his company to make a sticker and gave it to Erlang as a gift, and then asked her if she wanted to stick it on the base. Unexpectedly, Erlang observed the stickers for a while, and then did not hesitate to paste them on his base. Finally, it's very cute. Take the electric guitar of Shengming to compare. Sure enough, one sticks to Pikachu, the other sticks to the Sonic Rabbit. It looks very well matched. This also directly made Shengming decide on the spot, and if there are any members to join in the future, he will also find a suitable Pokémon sticker and let it be pasted on the instrument, which can also become the feature of their band, right? But, until now, Shengming didn't expect which Pokémon was suitable for 8,000,000, which also made the 8,000,000 eldest lady very unhappy. Therefore, this question is also a very important thing for Shengming. The silent time, silently accompanied by passionate singing, seemed to pass slowly, and soon the clock hands on the wall were approaching 10 o'clock. 0. Ask for flowers. It's 9:40. The blue sky, the green meadows, the white halls, and the black crowds are the main colors of this sports festival, and the helicopters that are constantly circling up and down in the sky are even more so. Whether it is the 120,000 spectators on the stage or the many students in the players' lounge, they are all ready at this time. Boom. Quote. The class guide Aizawa, whose whole body was wrapped in bandages like a mummy, saw the microphone teacher walk in and asked lightly, "How's the preparation?" Quote. Totally okay. The microphone looked down through the transparent glass and then exhaled and said with a smile, "Those 2 kids are really good. Especially that Shengming Electric, who is an out-and-out genius in music. Seriously, when he graduates, I want to invite him to the office." 0. Well, as a veteran hero of Japan's top music department, he naturally has his own hero office, and his side business is the broadcasting company where he is a DJ and boss. But seriously, I didn't expect the principal to make such a bold decision for the sake of Shengming. It's really doesn't make sense. Aizawa said lightly. Well, in order to increase this singing activity before the start of the competition, the principal has talked to the people above I don't know how many times. Quote. The microphone uncharacteristically calmed down. After all, it's unprecedented. After speaking, looking at the gorgeous stage that suddenly rose in the middle of the field, and the duo of Shengming Erlang holding their respective musical instruments on the stage, he laughed exaggeratedly, but I think Shengming Electric is worthy of him. Then turn on the microphone in front of you. Everybody. Next, please enjoy the opening performance that has never been seen before in the history of Xiangying. They are Pikachu. The next moment, the lights of the entire stage were turned on, and colorful fireworks rose around the hall, and the whole atmosphere was instantly ignited by this gift microphone teacher. Worthy of. Quote. Aizawa looked at Kamime, who began to play handsomely, and said secretly in his heart, I hope you don't disappoint everyone, Kamina. Quote. Chapter 77. Who's going to, whoever wants to escape. Even if it is only for a moment, you can clear the obstacle. Let's move on. There must be something that only you can do. Green star ni, let this blue planet. Hikari Kusanuyuni, you can continue to shine. At the end of the prelude, the first person to sing was not the Captain Kami, but the bassist's ear. At this moment, all the cameras and eyes were focused on this 15-year-old girl. Most of the audience, who were originally quiet, with curiosity and pickiness, ready to listen to it, were directly ignited by Erlang's crisp singing at this time. This song seems good. 630. Go and catch the dream you have. Go and protect your cherished friend. You can definitely become a stronger version of yourself. Followed by the passionate male voice, the rhythm was directly pushed to a higher sky, and at the same time, the 10 fingers of both hands were constantly plucked on the guitar smoothly, especially under the illumination of colorful lights. The whole person was glowing. This lyric is also the biggest reason why Shengming chose this song. Inside the A lounge. So handsome. Shengming. Sana Ishido clenched his fists in front of him, watching in amazement as he played and sang to himself on the screen under the cheers of more than 100,000 spectators. It's different from usual. Quote. While blowing little classmates, stunned to look at the chorus of Shengming and Erlang, and then added, Erlang is also. Am I making the wrong choice? On the other side, there are 8,000,000, but I feel a little uncomfortable in my heart." Before Shangming hoped that she could temporarily serve as a keyboardist, and the three of them walked on the top stage in Japan together, but at that time, because of the lack of confidence in their piano skills, they repeatedly refused. Although she learned basic piano performance because of her family's education since childhood, how could she be on such a big stage with her half-baked level? But, what's going on with this regret now? Shangming Electric. I'm not going to lose today. Classmate Bang looked at the screen with an indifferent face, and today he felt much colder than usual. Because that man will also come, he wants to prove it to Andva, even if he doesn't use his flame ability, he can still get the first place in the sports festival. Cut, you'll be in the limelight there. Quote. Bang Hao put his hands in his trouser pockets, his face was full of unhappiness, but only he knew it, and he still had some envy in his heart. After all, his goal is to be like Olmut, the top hero of Uarmut. And to become such a hero, it is not enough to be strong, but also to have a huge popularity, but for this he scratches his head, he is confident in terms of strength, but popularity. The devil knows what to do. But now he seemed to see a way. At this time, the scene has been completely conquered by this song. Whether it is ordinary citizens or professional heroes, they are deeply attracted by the music and lyrics of this song. In particular, the principals and teachers of Shangying are extremely satisfied with this song, which is simply the best gift to all the students of this Shangying Sports Festival. Tsukame daz shi tomorrow wo, go catch the dazzling tomorrow. To protect cherished people. It must be a stronger version of yourself. Let go of that weak self. Break that obstruction wall. I have to admit that the lyrics of this song really made the blood of all the first, second and third grade students boil, and they could feel the desire for heroes in their hearts, all of which were perfectly sung by Shangming and Erlang. That's handsome. In the third grade area, in the Lounge of Heroes Section A plump and graceful beautiful girl with waist-high blue hair looked at Shangming on the screen with interest. Ah! A sturdy young man with a brown-yellow spiky head said admiringly, if only I had a chance to get to know him. Why, do you want to learn to sing? I remember you're not the kind of person who doesn't have a complete pentatonic sound. Quote. The celestial ring, which looked like Uchiha Sasuke, leaned against the wall boredly and smacked lightly. Ah, ha 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 ha. Tong Million laughed out loud in embarrassment, scratching his head at the same time, and replied, it's okay not to sing, by the way. Did they have their names written on the subtitles before? Both of them are first-year A's in the hero department. That handsome junior brother seems to be called Shangming Electric, and that elementary school girl is called Erlang Shangshang, hee, the name sounds very good. The fluctuating snail with an angelic face, gently pointed at the pink lips with the slender index finger, but not only was there no charm, but he exuded an innocent temperament, which also made the hearts of other male students in the room jump involuntarily zero. What a beautiful. At this time, Shangming and Erlang each sang the last line of Believe in Your Heart with excited faces, and then played the last note together to conclude. The moment their hands left the instrument, the whole opening performance officially came to an end, but the cheers of nearly 120,000 people in the audience suddenly burst into the sky. Pikachu! 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 The audience didn't know their names, but they remembered the name of the band at the time of the introduction of the gift. Microphone, Pikachu. Woo woo, son, he's amazing. Shangming's mother's eyes were watered and she saw that everyone around her was cheering for Shangming, and her heart welled up with uncontrollable pride and joy. Yes, Naruto him. It worked. Shangming's father looked at Shangming and Erlang, who bowed to everyone in the audience, and smiled with relief, and at the same time understood that Shangming was completely popular this time. For at least the next month, the names of Kaminu and Erlang, as well as the song, will dominate the nerves of the Japanese media. 3.7 inches. I hope you're mentally prepared. Upper Ming. Quote. At the same time, in the dark space where the wooden crane and the black mist had been teleported before, the dozens of LCD screens were also playing the live broadcast of the Shangying Sports Festival, especially when the camera focused on Shangming, dozens of sweaty faces appeared on the screen. It was this kid who seriously injured the wooden crane. Right. Quote. On the automatic transfer in front of the screen, the tall black shadow looked at dozens of Shangming's faces and asked lightly. According to the preliminary investigation, his name is Shangming Electric, and his personality is electrified. Black Mist bowed his head respectfully and replied. Very interesting kid, his next performance. I'm looking forward to it. Quote. 15 minutes later, the Shangying Sports Festival officially began. Chapter 78. Shangming, you're so handsome. What's the name of this song? Wow, I actually have 2 celebrity classmates, and I'm going to sign autographs for us in a while. Yes, 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 and a group photo. So you can take the photo and play with the cute girls. Ahem, well, needless to say, the last sentence came from Minoru Mineta's mouth. Ha ha ha, maybe it's because he just finished the big performance, but Kamime was also in a state of excitement at this time, so he laughed heartily, and he found that he really liked the feeling of standing on the stage. My life plan is the right one. Well, this is Shangming's inner thoughts at this time, and he once again strengthens his confidence in the goal. On the other side, Erlang was surrounded by a group of girls and chatted with each other, and it could be seen that Erlang was also very satisfied with the performance just now. Kamime. Quote. Just when the lounge was in a bustle, a young man with an indifferent face suddenly walked over, and Shangming turned around in confusion and said in surprise, "What's wrong? This time is different from the previous one, and your words will not have any power." Quote. The bomb boy uncharacteristically declared war. In the battle of head-on strength, I will let you know the gap between the 2 sides. The final winner will definitely be me. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the room quieted down, but in the next second, the corners of Shangming's mouth rose slightly, revealing a handsome smile and looking at the ice-blue eyes of the young man O2 who got serious. Okay. Quote. Although I think you're a little too early, now. But I'm up. Electric. Quote. We'll be waiting for you in the final position. Speaking of this, Shangming raised his head with his chest straightened, and his voice raised a pitch again, and under the stunned gaze of everyone in Class A, he also declared war on the bombardment boy. Thunderbolt beyond me. Surpass me. When Bang Jiao Leng heard this, his face suddenly turned completely black. What do you mean? Obviously, he declared war on the higher level. Why is it the other way around now, and he wants to challenge him as the next one? Although this difficult road may need to be chased with your whole life, don't be discouraged, don't give up. No matter how many years or decades you have to wait in the future, I will be in front of you, turning into the brightest thunder shadow, pointing you in the direction of becoming stronger. At the end of Shangming's sentence, it directly aroused the anger of the young man, and his right body even began to emit cold ice mist, and at the same time, he also deeply realized his innocence just now. Words won't have any power. He. Don't do that, boom. At this time, Midoriya saw that Bang was about to be anxious, so he walked over directly, pressed his left arm, and persuaded loudly, "Don't do this, you 2 are about to appear." Smack. But today's booming boy is really different. He actually knocked off Midoriya's hand directly, and then looked at him coldly. I don't know why, but Olmut seems to be paying attention to you, and although I don't want to know the details, you're also the opponent I'm going to win today. Don't be careless. These words made Midoriya bow his head and fall silent, but when he looked up a moment later, there was a look of determination in his eyes. Indeed, no matter how you look at it, you are much stronger than me, and if you talk about strength alone, I think most of your classmates are probably inferior to you except for Shangming. But Midoriya didn't notice that his words directly made his face look ugly, so he continued. Subjectively and objectively. But everyone, including the students of other subjects, they are all serious and go for the first. At this time, the Green Valley boy no longer had any weakness and aura on his body, but his eyes became sharper than anyone else's, and he even dared to meet the cold gaze of the scorching cold. So, I'm going to do my best to get the number 1 spot. This series of 3-person dialogues made the firm Green Valley, the confident Shangming, and the indifferent bombardment suddenly become the focus of A's gaze, and there was a faint 3-legged atmosphere. This also made the explosion on the side a little unable to suppress the anger in his heart. He used his eyes to kill, staring at the 3 people who were confronting each other, and his fists were even more exposed. Hey, what do you mean, have I become a trick? You 3 wait for me, and I'll kill you all in a while. The first place this time is mine. At the same time, the Shangying Sports Festival officially began, and the 4 large screens on the sports field instantly cut to the microphone teacher. Hey, wait and see, audience. His appearance once again aroused the cheers of most of the audience, who had been waiting for a long time. The audience sitting in front of the TV from all over Japan was even more excited, and it was time to start. And hordes of media people. This year, you guys' favorite is the high school students' youthful rampage. The heroic sports festival has officially begun. Everybody, are you ready? Under the full support of the gift and microphone, the already warm atmosphere was directly pushed to the climax, and the cheers gathered together directly made most people unable to hear their own voices at all. Year 1 Division, students enter. In the next second, the stereos around the venue began to play the passionate entrance music, which was Xiangying's school song. Tread. Quote. The first to come out of the dark entrance and exit was none other than the first year A of Shengming, Madoragu, Banghao, and Bang 4. Phew. Phew. Bang, bang, bang. The moment they walked out, the fireworks salute that had been prepared a long time ago rose into the sky again, just because it was not night at this time, so there was a fly in the ointment, but everyone present, no one cared about this problem. Because it's already lively enough. The little seedlings of heroes will start a fierce duel between you and me, an annual battle of great battles. You're all looking forward to these guys. The hosting experience of the microphone is indeed very rich, and it directly ignites the most anticipated thing in Class A. Those miracle stars who have been attacked by the enemy, but with their iron will, they have survived the desperate difficulties. That's the hero department. First year A. That's right. His words instantly praised Shengming and them as the protagonists of the audience, especially the reappearance of Shengming and Erlang, which caused the teenagers and girls on the stage to scream wildly. Well, most of these children are elementary school or junior high school children who come with their parents. 047. Soon the other students also walked out in order one by one, but their mood was a little unpleasant. It's also understandable, who likes to be a trick? Especially a group of people in Class B of the Hero Division, they think that Class A is just lucky and happened to meet an incoming enemy, what's the big deal? But this group of young children didn't think that Class A was not lucky to be attacked, they were really almost killed. Contestant oath. At this time, standing on a white cement platform, the teacher at midnight wearing a specially prepared Super 18 forbidden tights showed his plump figure without shyness, and shouted into the microphone in front of him with his chest up. Contestant representative, 1A. Naruto. Whoop. The audience cheered again, and at the same time, Shengming's handsome smile was projected onto 4 large screens in the east, west, north and south. Sure enough, A's classmates were not surprised by this result. Not to mention anything else, Shengming was the first place in the entrance exam of the hero subject, but it also made Banghao even more unhappy. This thunderbolt bastard, why is he always in the limelight in front of me? Look at me in a while, how can I blow you out? At this time, under the gaze of more than 100,000 people, Shengming slowly walked up to the stage and stood in front of the microphone. Next to him was Midnight when he was full of interest. Oath. A flash of light suddenly flashed in Shengming's mind. It's a rare opportunity, do you want to no longer have a second or first meeting? The next second he spoke. Remember my name, and what I looked like when I won the crown. I am Kamime. Electrical. Chapter 79. Whoop. Shengming's declaration caused an uproar in a second. Although he used the word, please, in his words, no matter how he listened to it, he gave people the impression of being full of confidence, which also made many other scientists who were not used to him and showed off being angry. Hey, you're too arrogant. You golden retriever. It's amazing to be able to sing. Seeing this scene, Shengming's real, iron, buddy, Taijie smiled and praised, you have to have this kind of momentum. But will this cause a siege from everyone? Iida said with some concern. But strangely, Banghao, who has always been the most short-tempered, really didn't say anything, just put his hands in his trouser pockets and quietly looked at Shengming's back. Because he knows that at this time, it is useless to say anything, and when the competition starts, he will let everyone understand that he is the first place, and he will win over himself. Boom. Just as Shengming walked back to the crowd in Class A, the images on the 4 big screens switched instantly. First item. Alright, let's get started. Announced at midnight without any delay. Well, no way, this is Xiangying's school spirit. Every year, a large number of students quit in this session. Quote. Well, the first project that decides the fate is. As soon as she finished speaking, a clear 3-dimensional image appeared out of thin air behind her, with the name of the event and the specific rules of this competition painted on it. Obstacle race. That's it. Seeing this scene, although Shengming knew that the technological level of this world was much more advanced than in his previous life, he would still be subconsciously surprised when the truly perfect virtual projection appeared in front of him. All students from 11 classes will participate in this race. Quote. At midnight, the teacher turned to look at the virtual screen and introduced. The race is about 4 kilometers long around the stadium. As he spoke, he suddenly raised his right arm, stretched out his sexy tongue and licked his red lips, and talked about the main part. Our school's style has always been very focused on freedom, so as long as you are in the track, you can use any means. At this moment, many of the students' faces showed joy, which means that they can use their personality freely. Especially those students who are not heroes or even more excited, this is a very rare opportunity for them. All right, everybody, all in place. Soon hundreds of trainees, under the command of Midnight, quickly gathered at the prepared starting point, and in front of them was a very narrow exit, which also made Shangming's eyes narrow. I see. Toot, toot. The 3 green lights above the exit went out one after another, and when the third beep sounded, the sound of Midnight resounded through the microphone throughout the stadium. Start. In the next second, all the participating students ran towards the exit in unison, showing that most of them did not use their personality at all. Well, they haven't adapted to the game yet. Get straight to the point, mummy man. What do you think is the highlight of the prologue? The microphone teacher who gave the live commentary did not forget the meaning of the guide at all, and directly interacted with him at the beginning. It's now. Quote. Aizawa looked at the situation in the field and said lightly. Hey, hey, hey. The exit from this starting point is too narrow, isn't it? Don't squeeze me. Midoriya struggled through the crowd, but he had already understood what Xiangying meant. I see, that is, the initial starting point is. First screening. At this time, the booming boy directly exerted his powerful, frozen, personality, and in an instant, the cold ice wind directly filled the entire space, and froze most people's legs at a speed visible to the naked eye. I'm sorry. Crackling. But just when the booming boy stepped on the ice that stretched out a few meters, a burst of rhapsody and screams of pain suddenly sounded behind him. Ah, you're going to speed up, bang classmate. At this moment, a crackling golden figure rushed past him at a very fast speed and rushed to the front, leaving behind a word full of ridicule. Shangming Electric. Bang Jiao Leng looked at the back of Shangming, who was entangled in golden electricity, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. Sure enough, don't you want to trap you easily? Ah. Immediately after that, he didn't hold back his strength, and jumped forward and stepped directly on the icicle he made, and followed closely with him unstoppably. At the same time, in the rear, although many contestants were eliminated at the first time under the double blow of bombardment and Shangming, there were still many people who had a good control of their own personality and rushed out of the narrow crossing. Don't think it's too simple. With the explosion of his hands, Blasto roared in the air, half of the bastard. But unlike the original book, because of the all-round, 100,000 volts, before Shangming, the Green Valley boy was electrogenously numbed on the ice like Shigeta contestants, which filled his heart with despair. How could it be? How so? I actually fell at the starting point. What should I do? I obviously told Olmut that I want everyone to see him come out of nowhere. Looking at the people behind him, one by one he ran out of the exit. The heart of the young man in Midoriya became more and more panicked. He wanted to stand up, he wanted to keep running. But the paralyzed body did not listen to the call. Damn. The next moment, his body actually glowed. On the other side, the roar and boom of the first ladder have already met the first obstacle, and it is more than a dozen, 0 score, giant robots that appeared during the actual skill test. Their size, which was comparable to that of a building, and the number of horrors, made dozens of people such as Bang Hao, Chong Dark, and Tai Jie who came with them stop. It's boring, Xiangying teachers, I've been. It's different. Compared to them, Shangming had no intention of staying at all, and at this time he was already stepping on the robot's spacious arm at high speed, looking at the transferred red camera. Boom. At this time, the current lines on Shangming's body, which were originally separated by some distances, were instantly connected into a piece of golden aura, and the speed skyrocketed by as much as 2 times. At this moment, he became a Super Saiyan. This is the second stage before the final, divine speed. Flashes of lightning. The spectators in the stadium only saw good money on the screen, and this form of Shangming appeared for less than a second, and disappeared directly after a flash of golden light. Well, the satellites in the sky did not keep up. By the time the camera moved over again, the central position at the very top of the 0 points giant robot had been completely exploded, and flames, explosions, and electricity occupied everything there. Hey, what just happened? Gift. Microphone teacher, staring at the big screen with wide eyes, shouted to eat. Aha. Aizawa Bandao, who was wrapped in bandages all over his body, also squinted his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. Ah. But as soon as the microphone teacher's voice fell, a giant robot next to him was also frozen like a wave of ice, from the bottom to the top, and the boomboy continued to pass through from below with a cold face. Bastard dad, look at it, this time I will only use the ability to freeze and get the first place in the end. But until then, his eyes stared coldly at the golden thunder shadow in front of him. We need to defeat him first. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 80. Flashes of light. This move is an enhanced version of high-speed movement, which not only has faster speed, higher nerve response, and stronger strength, but also has a certain strength of armor for Shengming with the lightning energy connected to the body. And armor represents hardness in a certain sense, which naturally also improves Shengming's attack ability. In this state, every punch and kick is equivalent to a strengthened version of the electric light fist, although the actual power is still far behind. But I have to say that there are indeed some prototypes of the Thunder Shadow armor. However, this move is not unlimited, and the power consumption of maintaining the state is definitely higher than that of high-speed movement, and then each attack will also consume a certain amount of power, and the same is true when defending against attacks. It can be said that the power consumption of this lightning flash only lasted for 10 minutes, and it was already close to the lightning chain that was used on the dead-handle wooden crane before. Most importantly, the state of the upper. Well, it's handsome. Not to mention the golden electric energy that covers the whole body, the blonde hair that was originally a little drooping down is even more erected under the encirclement of electricity, and the whole person is properly a golden-eyed version of Super Saiyan. Ah, there must be no comparison in strength, but as long as you are handsome, it would be fine. However, seeing the subtle knowledge, it can be seen from this move that Shengming's overall strength has risen to a level. Few aren't your rival at all in terms of speed. Boom Jelly stopped creating multiple layers of icicles, and while using the personality ability of his left body to warm up his right body, which had already formed frost, he began to run at full speed with his legs. Well, the speed is definitely not comparable to before. This also means that this arrogant teenager has given up on continuing to compete with Shengming. It's just the first game, there's no need to fight too hard. Just win the first place in the end. Quote. That's right, this young man with a cold face thinks so at this time. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, in the ears of Bang Jiao, there was a familiar rapid explosion sound, and when he looked back, it was really the guy who burst How. Yo, half of the bastard, long time no see. Blast, who used his hands as thrusters, looked down at him from the air and mocked after catching up with Boom scorched at high speed. What, your personality needs time to take a break. But the indifferent Bang didn't say anything to refute it, just kept his running while looking at Bang Hao's speed. He's getting faster and faster, no, I should say his explosion is getting more powerful. Is it a slow burning type? At the same time, the third staircase, which is a little further behind, is dominated by Iida's squad leaders running at high speed, jumping frogs blowing the rainy season, well-equipped Akira, and more than 8 million people riding small electric bicycles ADBF. Oh, by the way, there is also a shoji classmate in the sky who connects the replica wrists together and flies as meat wings. I have to say, his wave of operations is really 666. But at this moment, there was a sound behind them. Ah, I'm not going to fall here, ultimate mouth. A large screen in the stadium cut in time. That's A1Zizuku Midoriya. The microphone once again showed his love, and the decibels he shouted instantly resounded throughout the museum and tens of millions of families through the amplification of the microphone in front of him. What's the situation with his exaggerated speed? He looked at the Green Valley boy on the screen with a hideous face and approached the third echelon at a very high speed, and then pointed to the bright red linear light that appeared on the Green Valley boy's arms, neck and face, and turned his head to ask Class A guide Aizawa. That's Midoriya's personality, what's it called? This question, not to mention that he wants to know, everyone who pays attention to Midoriya wants to know, but Aizawa is silent, because he doesn't know what Midoriya's personality name is, and it is not written on the student profile. It's an explosive personality, well. The kind that is very powerful, but can cause great damage to the body. Speaking of which, Aizawa class director looked at Midoriya on the big screen and was faintly worried. He was injured to that extent with just one arm before, so he couldn't be seriously injured after a while. More than. At this time, the gift. Microphone teacher stood up all of a sudden and yelled, "Midoriya Izuku," surpassing the contestants of the third echelon. He's approaching the second step of the ladder where Boom Scorch and Boom Glory are located. Green Valley Boys. Olmut, who was sitting in the classroom, looked at Midoriya on the big screen with a stiff face, and he saw the flame in the eyes of his heir. It was the fire of OFA power. Is it his strong will to win that inadvertently ignites the power of OFA and automatically adjusts itself? On the other side, just when everyone was exclaiming for Midoritani's performance, Kamina, who was at the forefront, had already reached the second obstacle. "Oh, this terrain can't be turned on again." Quote, "Although the speed of electric flash is fast, it is really less flexible than a small range, and it is really not as good as high-speed movement. Unless he can rush to the other end in one go, he will fall 100%. Phew." With a deep breath, the electric energy on Shang Ming's body dissipated, leaving only a dozen golden currents wrapped around his body, and the golden hair that stood up naturally drooped down again. Are you catching up? Let's go." Shang Ming subconsciously glanced back, Bang Hao and Bang Jiao frozen. At this time, Bang Hao had already crossed Bang to become the closest player to him. Then he set off without saying a word, and while maintaining high speed, he flexibly stepped on the steel rope and crossed one after another towering earth and pillar platforms, giving people an extremely relaxed feeling. This also made many forces and heroes from all sides who had paid attention to Shang Ming from the beginning can't help but admire. What do you think? Quote, in Mitsui's ancestral house, the old man who was saved by Shang Ming before, wearing a noble and elegant black kimono, sat firmly on the tatami mat, looked at Shang Ming on the TV in the distance, and smiled. Do you still think that he is not worthy of our use of super intelligent shape memory alloy? The middle-aged man who was wearing a straight suit and kneeling respectfully on the side replied hesitantly, his potential is really good, I think it's better to take a look at it, after all, we only have a piece of wisdom gold. That's it. Quote, the old man didn't annoy him either, and smiled indifferently, if he can get the final first place, I will give him the combat uniform, as I said. Quote, what if you can't? Quote, the current head of the Mitsui Foundation, Yusuke Mitsui flashed a touch of joy. Although Shang Ming saved his old father's life, he still felt that he shouldn't send such precious materials. Even if Shang Ming wins second place, I can give up the idea of giving Jujin to Shang Ming. Quote, the old man replied decisively, but immediately added. But in addition to Jujin, the combat suit should also be given to him. The old man's life is not so cheap. Of course, Yusuke Mitsui nodded approvingly. As long as he didn't use Jujin, he would let the people below him use the best technology to make combat uniforms. In other aspects, it's up to you, Shang Ming. The old man ignored him anymore, and just silently watched Shang Ming struggle on the field. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.